meeting, which sounds like you, but then it's just a map of clubs you can meet thoughts in Miami.
Okay, I'll admit it. The kids aren't listening to Peterson anymore. I'm trying to get with the times. I was on top of the world when the postmodernists were crazy, and now it just feels like everyone's crazy and every man's out there for himself. The kids don't want to make their bed, they want a Bugatti. I'm tired of being the gateway to these other guys. I don't want to be the training wheels anymore. I want to be the main course. I help them get their life together, and once it's together, they just want to get rich and go have indiscriminate sexual escapades.
Yeah, I hear you, but what if we just get back to basics? I mean, this lobster stuff was getting memed right and left, and it converts to sales.
The kids now think lobsters are gay. It's all wolves and sheep. They want to be told to leave their fugly wives for hotter ones. But there's nothing wrong with staying with your fugly wife.
Yeah, exactly that. And also telling the moral relativists to screw themselves.
There was a time when TikTok was flooded with my spicy quotes. Now everyone is just so much spicier. Look at what someone tweeted at me. 2016 goal. They want their takes back. They don't even protest me at my shows anymore. Oh, look. There I go, crying again. The commentators are going to have a field day with this one. They think crying is for women and children now. Oh, maybe I should just go full Muslim. They can't attack that.
I think I speak on behalf of this publishing house when I say that we're totally fine with you just being vaguely Christian.
You think so?
I know so.
You know, I almost shaved my head. You know how much I paid for this do and just almost shaved it right off. I don't want to tweet about getting rich. I want to tweet about Justin Trudeau being bad. These benzos have got me all mixed up. I gotta go.
All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? I am very excited for this one. Really quick, I just want to give a shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back, even though you missed the live party. But you know it's never as fun unless you are here live. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it, I am going to be streaming. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, change the notifications to all, so you will never, ever, ever again miss an Indian Jesus live party. Also, before we continue, just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the stream.
For a man who titled the 10th
Struggle streaming already. Sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. All right. Who we got? Erica's in the building already. Welcome to the early gang. Welcome. So what we are going to be talking about tonight is something that when I found it, I was tickled. I was tickled because we all love Jordan Peterson. We all love Jordan Peterson for different reasons. But it's come to my attention that our good old friend who uses every biblical story, and as the video from Ryan Long, again, that was when Jordan Peterson tries to be top G. That was obviously a funny comedy skit from Ryan Long, but even saying, yeah, vaguely Christian, so on and so forth. But tonight, I will present you with proof, absolute, undeniable proof that Jordan Peterson does not, in fact, believe in God and what that means. So I actually think that this is amazing. This is great news because he does exactly the type of shit that I cursed in the first 20 minutes again. He does exactly the kind of thing that I am looking to do, is to use these values, Judeo-Christian values, whatever you want to call them, and follow those values without having to tie them to the dogma of believing in a God or believe in this or that or whatever else. Just the basic principles of treat others how you would like to be treated. There is value in tradition. Things like that. That for most people come directly from the Bible, but without having to tie it to believing in something that simply, frankly, does not have the evidence to be believed in. So this, who we're looking at right now, is Cosmic Skeptic, aka Alex O'Connor. Very, very intelligent dude. He goes to Oxford University. He has studied philosophy. He studied theology. He studied, anything in this realm. He has studied it very, very, very well. And like I said, when I saw this, I was blown away. So without further ado, let's dive right in and let's do it.
For a man who titled the 10th chapter of his 12 Rules for Life, "Be Precise in Your Speech," Jordan Peterson seems ludicrously uninterested in his own advice anytime he's speaking on the topic of religion or belief.
And already, as soon as he brings up this point, I'm like, yeah, that God or otherwise. Peterson is he is very articulate, but he's not very concise. So he talks a lot. He says a lot of things, and there is gold. There is gold in what Peterson says. But specifically, one of his 12 rules for life was be concise in your speaking. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like Peterson to me.
Belief in God. Now, granted, these aren't exactly the most straightforward areas of study known to man, so I wouldn't expect his views to be without detail and clarification. But in my view, Peterson tends to needlessly overcomplicate any question he has ever asked about God or religion to an extent that borders on the comic.
So people say to me, do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean, except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, we don't really know what any of those things mean.
And so he's not incorrect when he says this, but clearly we have an agreed upon language, or maybe we don't, but clearly we have an agreed upon language that asking a simple question, do you believe in God? Yes, there are ways to break that apart and actually dive into it. But this just sounds like Bill Clinton, talking about Monica Lewinsky. Depends on what your definition of is. Yet his rule for life is be concise with your words.
So I want to take a moment to explain why, after having listened carefully to a great deal of his recent material on religion, and even going to see him talk about it in person, my takeaway is this.
So, not somebody who's, just sitting around complaining about him. He's met Peterson, he's spoken to Peterson, and like I said before, he is got a very expansive resume in everything that we're talking about.
Jordan Peterson is what most people would call an atheist.
Yup.
He thinks that God is a fictional character, that the stories of religious scripture did not literally occur, and that the idea of God and stories about him are primarily a way for people to ground their value structures and provide social and psychological unity. Now, I do realize that Dr. Peterson himself would probably not be best pleased with that characterization I've just given of him as an atheist, so allow me to take some time to defend that claim. Fair warning, it's going to get a bit wordy and complicated, but stick with me.
Don't worry, I'll help you out with all that.
I might be wrong, but I've tried my best to offer an account of what it is that Jordan Peterson actually thinks, before then offering some criticism. Of course, if I do get it wrong, then Dr. Peterson, you're always welcome on my podcast. To begin with, we have to start with a fundamental question. To Jordan Peterson, real or not, what is God? But just before jumping into that, a word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Morning Brew. Morning Brew Finance or Tech or Business. As I say, it's completely free. It takes about 15 seconds to sign up, and you can read through the entire newsletter.
All right.
So back to it. To Jordan Peterson, what is God? To begin answering,
and this is a great place to start with anybody when you're talking about this stuff, because the fact of the matter is, and I think this is the underlying theme that I really want to explore with this whole hey, we got just a cog in the fuckery. What is good, girl? Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you can see from the title, thumbnail, and the banner here, I think Jordan Peterson is actually an atheist. So welcome, girl. But yeah, the start from the starting point, what is God? That's actually a very good question. Now, what do you mean by do? What do you mean by you? What do you mean by believe? Those are a little bit more nebulous and esoteric. But what is God? What do you mean by God? Well, that's a very good question. And it's the heart of the entire thing, because your definition of God it's the subject of the question. Do you believe in this? And so let's see what it is that Peterson actually determines to be what is defined as God.
this, we need to understand Peterson's views about value. For Jordan Peterson, our ability to do just about anything requires a belief in some set of value judgments. For example, even being able to do
Don't forget to hit the poll, please, guys.
something as simple as looking at this glass, simply seeing a cup, requires the assumption of value judgments. And there are two reasons for this. The first is expressed here by Jonathan Pageau, who appears to have had a huge impact on Peterson's thinking.
So before we get into, the esoteric stuff, we are talking about belief in God and understanding beliefs in terms of values. And values can be, your the moral values or the practical value that something holds. And so he's just using a cup as a very simple example as something that can be well defined.
We can't perceive an is without a hierarchy of attention and without a hierarchy of perception, because the world is indefinite in detail and in quantity. And so for even to be able to say this, to point to something, to say that, is already in this hierarchy of something we could call vertical causation.
So first, there are a near infinite number of ways that we can see the world. We could look in all different directions, focus on multiple things. We can see things as parts or as wholes. And so to focus on one object at first requires an attention hierarchy.
The hierarchy of attention.
What's worth looking at? What do we value focusing on? But it goes even deeper. For Peterson, the very ability to even identify a cup as a distinguishable object requires a belief in certain values.
And again, I'm sorry if I'm spoon feeding you. Let me know if you guys are you don't need this much. But again, we're talking about a thing. In the first case, do you believe in God? God is the thing. And so before we can determine whether you believe in God, we have to determine, okay, what is God? And so and the analogy here is just using a cup, because that's a very simple thing. We all understand what cups are.
If I put this cup on a table, why do I still see the cup and the table as two distinct objects? Why don't I perceive them as one big, weirdly shaped object? And why don't I see this cup as multiple objects? The side, the bottom, the rim. Why do I see it as one unified object when there are so many different ways that we could look at it? Well, here's what Dr. Peterson has.
Getting heady. We're getting heady. So stick with me. And, if there's questions, if you're not understanding something, just let me know. Because I know this stuff is heady. I have watched this already. I'm not flexing on you. I'm just saying, let me know, because it can get, if you don't stick with it, you're gonna get lost. But I'm here to help you out.
To say.
If you were a photorealist painter.
So again, this is how he how he determines what why we would, when you have the cup, you have a cup. Why is it that, with this mug specifically, I'm not differentiating the receptacle that's holding the liquid and the handle? Similarly, why, when I put it down, am I continuing to put both of those pieces as one thing, the mug, separate from the table? And so this is what Peterson would answer.
You could spend a month painting all the reflections on that glass. It's a very complex thing to perceive, but you perceive it as a unity. And we know this neuropsychologically. We know this scientifically. You perceive it as a unity because you can grip it. and because you can raise it to your lips, and because you can drink it, and because you need to drink water to survive, and you are willing to drink water to survive because you believe emotionally and motivationally and perhaps rationally that survival is a good, and that's dependent on your belief that human existence in some sense is a good.
Hey, we got Divine and Rod in the building. Sup, brother? Sup? What is going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, you have read the title exactly right. We are here to show irrefutable evidence that Jordan Peterson is, in fact, an atheist. It's true. Make sure you guys hit the poll. I'm very interested to see where you guys are at with that. And of course, if you could hit the like button, that would be amazing. Thank you so much, guys. So I'm actually going to back that up a little bit. Let's make sure we're getting the
Look at it. Well, here's what Dr. Peterson has to say.
If you were a photorealist painter, you could spend a month painting all the reflections on that glass. It's a very complex thing to perceive, but you perceive it as a unity, and we know this neuropsychologically. We know this scientifically. You perceive it as a unity because you can grip it, and because you can raise it to your lips, and because you can drink it, and because you need to drink water to survive, and you are willing to drink water to survive because you believe emotionally and motivationally and perhaps rationally that survival is a good, and that's dependent on your belief that human existence in some sense is a good, and that it's striving towards some sort of higher unified order. And you might think, well, you don't need all that to perceive the glass. And the answer is, yeah, as a matter of fact, you need all of that to perceive the glass.
So the reason my brain perceives this cup as a single object is functional.
Hey, we got Lalo in the building. Oh, I missed you too. Thank you so much for hanging out. Yes, you have read correctly. We are proving that Dr. Jordan Peterson is, in fact, an atheist. Just a Cog says, I'm an omnist, so the poll is too specific for me. Well, I don't really know what an omnist is, but either it's pretty. How is it too specific? Either you do believe that there is one or many gods, or you don't believe there is one or many gods. Lalo says, by the way, bro, do you like the Qatar Mundial? I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry. But yeah, so again, we're just talking about why we can't, in Jordan Peterson's words, why does this mug exist in our minds as a singular thing, as opposed to a mug with and a separate handle, or when I put it on the table, a mug that's on a table that has a mug shape on it, as opposed to a table with a mug on it. Getting a little heady, but stick with me.
It's because I can use this cup to drink things. And the reason I see it like that is because I want to drink things, because drinking things is necessary to my survival.
So going back to the idea of values, now we're saying, okay, the reason that we are saying this is one thing is because the value that it provides, the value that if I'm thirsty, this thing will provide that value. And so it's the practicality that is the definition here. So keep that in mind. It's the practicality of the definition. Let's hear it one more time.
This cup as a single object is functional. It's because I can use this cup to drink things. And the reason I see it like that is because I want to drink things, because drinking things is necessary to my survival. And so I must, in some sense, value my survival in order to see the cup. So in order to perceive the world around us, according to Peterson, and objects within it, we need to believe in a hierarchy of values. But we don't just need to believe in this value hierarchy to see anything. We also need it in order to do anything. Here, Peterson gives the example of writing an essay.
I used to ask my students, why are you writing this essay? And that's a variation of the question, why do
you assigned
anything?
it?
But let's make it concrete. Why are you writing this essay?
Because I want a
so
good
that
grade.
I can get a grade for the class.
Oh, okay. I thought he was. I thought we were going in a different direction. So I was playing around. Okay, we are really going in that that directly of a line of thinking. So yeah, I'm writing this essay that you've assigned me because I care about my grade.
Why are you taking the class? So that I can finish my year at university. Why are you finishing your year at university and motivated to do that? To get my degree. Why do you want the degree?
I was going to say,
that's
okay.
a whole hierarchy of value
4 hours later.
that is definitely governing either in an integrated manner or a disintegrated manner the actions of the person who's writing the essay.
So this is a little bit more straightforward. Whenever we do anything, someone can ask, why are you doing that? Why am I making this video right now? Well, so
And not to throw too much at you, but keep all of this in mind in reference to our free will argument. And do, you know, when you are thinking, okay, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? At the end of the day, it always comes back to some type of it always comes back to some type of survival or basic biological function. So, how much free will is there? Oh, we're doing so good. Come on.
so I can share my views with you. And why do I want to share my views with you? Or to contribute to a meaningful conversation. Well, why do I want to do that? Because I value such meaning, and so on and so forth. And this can go on up this hierarchy of things that I value until we get to the very top, the thing that we value most of all, upon which everything else is predicated. Okay, so in order to see anything or do anything, we must be motivated by some hierarchy of values. So here's an important question. What is at the top of that value hierarchy? What is the fundamental value upon which everything else is based? Here's where it gets really interesting.
And you might say, well,
Okay, so I'm like I said, I did see this before, but I don't necessarily remember it word for word, and obviously there's a lot here. So what is the ultimate value? And I would assume, again, like I just said, it has to be something along the lines of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it starts with survival, and then, you know, just getting your basic needs met, survival, getting shelter, getting food, then you know, your social needs, making sure that you have somebody in your life where you can interact and so on and so forth. But let's see, this is where it gets interesting.
well, how hard are you going to try when you write this essay? And the answer to that would be, well, it depends on how well integrated my view of the ethic is all the way up to the highest place. And then we could say, well, the highest place is the divine place, and we could make that a matter of definition.
Okay, key cut in. Let's hear that again, and let's see if any of you can pick out what Alex and I both just heard. Come on. Do the thing.
That would be, well, it depends on how well
So again, what, especially you guys know me a lot better than you know Alex O'Connor. What did Jordan Peterson say that popped out to me immediately? And then clearly, obviously, O'Connor said the same thing. Banner says, while you have free will, you are by no means free from your mind. You sure about that? Because those seem incompatible. If you're not free from your mind, what are you free from? But again, what did Peterson say that's hopping out to me?
my view of the ethic is all the way up to the highest place.
Okay, so we're following that line. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? To the highest place, okay?
And then we could say, well, the highest place is the divine place. And
is it though? The highest place is the divine place. What study are you using for that? Well, I agree with you, Divine Rod. I don't believe that free will exists. But the notion that the highest place is the divine place, that is just saying things. So clearly we saw Cosmic Skeptic is about to jump in right on him.
and we could make that a matter of definition.
Matter of definition. Definitionally, The highest value that we have is the divine place.
There it is. Did you catch that? It was so quick that you'd miss it if you blinked. But Jordan Peterson just told us what God is in his view. Listen again.
And then we could say, well, the highest place is the divine place, and we could make that a matter of definition.
The highest place, that is the highest place on this value hierarchy that we were just talking about, is the divine place.
Now, how many of you, whether you're religious or not, how many of you are referring to that? The highest value that we can have. When you say the word God, are you referring to the highest value that we can have in the context of what we want and just, you know, this whole thing that we've been going? Is that what you mean? Because that's what Dr. Jordan Peterson means.
And we can make that a matter of definition. Wow. The word divine, of course, means of or relating to God. And Peterson has just told us that for him, it's a simple matter of definition that the divine is just whatever value is at the highest place on the value hierarchy. So let's go back to that essay that we were talking about. Writing the essay requires...
So I just put up a new poll, and I'm curious what you guys think about that definition. Maybe it fits for you. Maybe you never would have put it that way, but it does fit for you. But, and again, whether you're religious or not, you understand what people mean when they say the word God. So I'm interested if when you speak about God, does the highest value meet that definition?
Requires a value hierarchy. Why are you writing the essay? To get a good grade. And why do you want the good grade? To get a good job. Why do you want the job? And so on and so forth, up the value hierarchy. And Peterson says that we can simply take as a matter of definition that wherever we end up when we follow this hierarchy, whatever happens to be at the highest place is the divine. So what is the nature of this thing at the top of the value hierarchy?
So Jessica said, that's why I'm like, on God. God is a man-made definition. You are correct, ma'am. God to me is the energy that makes up all things, but not the social personification of a maker. And this is the heart of what we're going to get at today, is that all of us, again, religious or not, all of us have a different definition of this word God, but it's thrown around and we all use it as if that's not the case. As if when we say a mug, we know what a mug is. But when we say God, what is it? What exactly is it that you are saying? Divine Around said, let me clarify my statement. Free will, meaning you are free to pick up the cup, take a drink, or walk across the room. But as far as the mind, you're always present, always reflective. So this is, if you look up Dan Dennett, he's a philosopher, and this is his workaround for the existence of free will. And so he is saying, you know, the same thing you're saying. You're free to pick up the cup in the sense that there's no force, energy, entity, whatever, preventing me from doing that. I am free in that sense to do that. Absolutely. But as we've gone over many times with like the choosing the ice cream flavor and stuff, that is a separate thing from whether you have the ability to make a decision that if the clock were turned back, you would be able to make a different decision. And so that's there's a great, maybe we could do a show on that, with, you know, Sam Harris, we talked a lot about, that's where I got the ice cream thing, and, Dan Dennett, who, talks about, free will in this way. But, yeah, there's a lot of people who think that. I think that's semantic. And I think that, yes, while I am free to do these things, that is not what is meant by free will. So again, I want to make sure we're clear on all this. So let's back this up a little bit.
When we follow this hierarchy, whatever happens to be at the highest place is the divine. So what is the nature of this thing at the top of the value hierarchy? What takes up this divine place? How do we characterize it? Peterson's answer here is astonishing.
And so then we might say, well, what should be in the divine place? And I would say, well, it has to be something that you can look at the world through, and it has to be something you act out.
So the divine has to be something you can look at the world through and something you can act out. That doesn't sound like a thing. That sounds like an action. That doesn't sound like an entity. That sounds like a value, a moral
And then
value.
we could say, well, that still leaves residual mystery. And then we might ask, well, how do we characterize it? And I would say we characterize that using fiction, because fiction is the abstraction of hierarchies of attentional prioritization and action. And so we could say that in the highest sense, in the biblical corpus, God is the ultimate fictional character.
Whoa! Proof! 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 If you missed it, let's hit it one more time.
Fraction of hierarchies of attention.
Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to what one of the most leading, the most famous Christian people in our culture is saying? Pay attention.
Attentional prioritization and action. And so we could say that in the highest sense, in the biblical corpus, God is the ultimate fictional character.
God is the ultimate fictional character. God is the ultimate fictional character. Case in point. Byron says, semi-related quote, the greatest battles of life are fought daily in the silent chamber of the soul. I like that one. I like that one. Definitely. Oh man, let's see what Cosmic Skeptic has for us with that.
Ding, ding, ding. One more time, please.
Or on this channel we go.
We could say that in the highest sense, in the biblical corpus, God is the ultimate fictional character.
God is a fictional character. God is the fictional personification of the highest value held by human beings.
Let's just cheers to that. To anybody here who understands why this is such a big deal to me. How often we talk about semantic obfuscation, keeping dogmatic language out of politics. This is one of the leading voices in politics and religion, and talks about his politics in the context of religion. Yet he just said, God is the ultimate fictional character. Cheers to that, Jordan Peterson. That is a sweet sip.
Let's break down how we got to where we are. Human beings simply find themselves unable to function without values. That's where we started. To see things or do things, we need to value things. Whatever the fundamental value is at the top of the value hierarchy is, for Peterson, by definition, divine. And God is just the fictional personification of these values. And then Peterson adds just one more thing.
God is the ultimate fictional character.
Oh, I love hearing it. I love hearing it come out of his mouth. God is the ultimate fictional character. Whatever you say, Jordan Peterson. Just a guy in the fucker. He says, yeah, people use God to direct their faith, or apply understanding to things they can't fully explain. Exactly. Exactly. And so not only do we not have like a coffee mug, a definition of what is God, it is specifically the opposite, where there is no definition. It's this nebulous thing that just fits in wherever you need it. It's not a thing. It's not a thing.
And then we're trying to characterize his nature as that which should be emulated, that unites us psychologically and socially.
So, in my view, this is the proof.
I said, shit, me too.
Jordan Peterson is an atheist. He's just described God as a fictional character whose existence is simply a characterization of value made by the human mind for the purpose of uniting us psychologically and socially.
So what does this actually mean in the grand scheme of Jordan Peterson's life, message, status in society, all of those things? Nothing. It means nothing. What it does mean is I've been right about everything. But no, what it means is that just because he doesn't believe in this idea of a man in the sky or some iteration of that, he can still speak to people who want to embody these values. And so again, I never shut up about stop using dogmatic language in politics. And this is precisely why. How many people are going to see Jordan Peterson saying God is the ultimate fictional character and just tune out? Because no, that's not what I believe. He's an atheist. No. This is not a good, as a storyteller, using the word God, using the word divine is not, according to his own rule, being concise with his language.
This is exactly what atheists say. God does not exist except as he is invented by the human mind. And the reason why the human mind invents God is to provide some psychological and social stability. If this is not atheism, then what is? So now we can understand that when Peterson talks about God, what he's really talking about is something like the fundamental value that human beings hold, whatever is at the top of their value hierarchy. Now we can actually begin to make sense of a lot of the things that Peterson...
Hey, we got Kluke in the building. Where the fuck you been, bro? Welcome back. We just had irrefutable proof that our good friend Jordan B. Peterson is in fact an atheist. He said, and I quote, God is the ultimate fictional character. And we're just diving into that. Welcome, buddy.
Peterson has said in the past that seem bewildering upon first hearing. For example, listen to this clip from a recent Lex Friedman podcast, bearing in mind that Peterson uses the word secular here to mean something like non-religious.
Even secular people go to museums. I'm secular. Well, are you in a museum? Yes. Are you looking at art? Yes. Well, what makes you think you're secular then?
Hold on.
The fact that I don't believe in God. What do you mean? That's what secular means in my understanding. Kluke says, I've been trying to find a job and shit, but mainly just burnt myself out from basically all politics. I hear you, brother. Definitely make sure you take care of yourself, and I am glad you are back.
What? The fact that you're in a museum looking at art means that you're not secular? Why on earth would somebody have to be religious to look at art? Well, if by God and divinity, Peterson is simply referring to fundamental human value, then since to enjoy art requires some sense of valuing art or beauty, then of course you can't be secular and enjoy art. The problem, of course, is that this simply isn't what most people mean by God or divine or secular. Christians are...
So what you're saying is, you're telling me, you are telling me that people are just willy-nilly using words like God and secular and belief and divine? No. Couldn't be.
Generally asked to believe in God, not as some fictional representative value judgment, but as a real entity existing independently of the human mind who really came to Earth as a human and was really crucified by the Romans as a historical fact. If Peterson thinks that God is a fictional character and that these stories contained in Scripture are fictional in nature, then he is simply, in almost anybody else's terminology, an atheist. So, does Peterson think that the events of the Bible are fictional? Or does he think that they really happened? Well, let's take a listen. The Old Testament...
So again, the importance here is, even as a very prominent Christian academic who uses biblical stories in his psychological or his psychology courses, it's exactly what I've been talking about, is that we can use these values even as atheists, even as people who see everything that's wrong with organized religion. That doesn't mean we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just like Jordan Peterson, who doesn't actually believe in a sky daddy, he understands the value that is presented in this ideology. The problem is he is conflating faith with storytelling and understanding.
Reports in the book of Exodus that the Jews were enslaved in Egypt before embarking on a journey through the wilderness after being liberated from their slavery. Moses is said to part the Red Sea during the escape, which he then drops on the Pharaoh and his soldiers, drowning all of them and facilitating the Jewish escape. Quite a specific series of events. So, Dr. Peterson, do you think that the events of Exodus actually happened, or are they just fiction?
You might.
The reason that matters is because if we're looking at the Bible as a collection of fictional stories, just like we would look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there is absolutely things in Marvel movies that you can apply to your real life that can help you, and understand social dynamics, whatever. But nobody's saying that there's really a super soldier who was frozen in ice for 70 years. Well, that's been happening, brother. You've been missing a lot. We just did a crypto stream. We might be doing another one soon, talking a lot about really just what's been going on. So I think you probably didn't miss much in terms of what we talked about. You just missed out on the fun of partying about it. But again, you are here now, and that is all that matters. So again, let's see. Does Jordan Peterson actually believe the events of the Bible are true or not?
I'd ask, well, did the events in Exodus really happen? And our conclusion was, well, not only did they happened in a meta manner, they're still happening.
Are they though? That's like saying no with extra steps. Let's try to hear that one more time. The question is, did the events in Exodus really happen? Before we do that, Jessica says, I think that's where people get mixed up with the Bible. Yes, some of the history happened. However, the Bible was hundreds of years in the making and written by men, which isn't really proof of a sky daddy. Correct, ma'am. Correct. Divine and said one light, many lanterns aspect. So many ways with a truth that lives inside each one of us. I gotta run that back. One light, many lanterns aspect. So many ways with a truth that lives inside each one of us. Can you expand on this a little bit more? It sounds very interesting. I'm not really sure what exactly you're saying though. But it sounds pretty. So did the events in Exodus really happen?
Was, well, not only did they happened in a meta manner, they're still happening.
They're still happening. The things that are reported to have happened thousands of years ago are still happening. I don't know how that works, but hey, both these gentlemen are smarter than me, so let's go to them.
Okay.
They happened they happened with such reality that they haven't stopped happening.
What the fuck does that mean? Did you go to the store yesterday? Yes, they happened with such reality that I'm still at the store right now. What?
And what does that mean? Well,
good question.
Everyone still struggles with the spirit of tyranny. And everyone still struggles with the fact that when you
what you saying,
escape
bro?
from a tyranny, you don't hit the promised land, you hit the desert. And then when you're in the desert of your imagination or with your lost peers, then you need to struggle with what guides you and what should guide you when you're lost. And then you have to grapple with the problem of appropriate and reliable forms of governance, because that's all part of the Exodus story. And so it didn't happen the way a happening would occur if you just detailed it out as a camera holding empirical observer.
So the events didn't happen in the way that we use the word happen, but they were so real that they continue to happen, even though they didn't actually happen. Vinarod said, one light, many lanterns aspect. So many ways with a truth that lives inside each one of us. Goes on to say, your example of truths about life, whether found in the Bible, cave paintings, MCU, or Star Wars. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree that there's endless sources for valuable information through storytelling. The problem arises when we say one of these stories is the story. And the only evidence we have for that is that the story says this is the story. It's like if we said, well, they said in the Spider-Man comic that Spider-Man exists, so Spider-Man must exist. But you say, yeah, again, just a whole long rant on not really saying anything. Not really saying anything at all. Try and get you one more time.
Okay.
They happened they happened with such reality that they haven't stopped happening. And what does that mean? Well,
I don't know, sir.
Everyone still struggles with the spirit of tyranny. And
What is
everyone still
tyranny?
struggles with the fact that when you escape from a tyranny, you don't hit the promised land, you hit the...
What does tyranny have to do with what we're talking about? I think unless the Exodus is where they're talking about the Jews escaping Egypt or something like that. Christians, feel free to educate me. I really don't understand what the hell he's talking about. Byron said, yes, I agree wholeheartedly, putting one story above another. Well, it's not that we shouldn't put some stories above others. There's some stories that are better than other stories. There's some stories that tell or express the theme better than others. But we put those higher because of that, not because in the story it says, "Hey, this is the best story ever." That's not how that works. So we've gotten to let's actually let's just see what is the book of Exodus about. So it says the book of Exodus provides details about Moses' upbringing and calling to prophet, institution of Passover, and the Lord's covenant with Mount Sinai, including his declaration of the Ten Commandments. Okay, so it is the story of man, what the fuck? It is the story of Moses, and so the tyranny does make a little bit more sense. But escape from tyranny, you don't hit the promised land.
The desert. And then when you're in the desert of your imagination or with your lost peers, then you need to struggle with what guides you and what should guide you when you're lost. And then you have to grapple with the problem of appropriate and reliable forms of governance, because that's all part of the Exodus story. And so it didn't happen the way a happening would occur if you just detailed it out as a camera holding empirical observer. It happened in a way deeper way that just doesn't stop happening.
So again, we have another answer of no, but just with a lot of words.
So when asked, did the Exodus really happen, Peterson says, it's still happening. What? The Jews are still wandering in the desert? Moses is still moseying around and parting seas?
Yeah, dude. It happened so realistically that it continues to happen right now.
Look, I get what Peterson is saying, The story of Exodus describes a struggle with tyranny and the aftermath of liberation, and these are themes that are still relevant and true today. But Peterson is smart enough to know that he's being asked a simple historical question.
Right. And this is where, as much as I love Jordan Peterson, as much as I love him, this is where people like him, when it comes to religion, people like Deepak Chopra, a lot of Christian apologists, when it comes to their specific area where they're supposed to know more than everybody else, they depend on your inability to either just understand what they're saying. In the case of someone like Deepak Chopra, where he talks about quantum mechanics and the singularities, most people don't understand quantum mechanics that well. So it's easy to inaccurately speak about quantum mechanics and shove in some bullshit based on real science that doesn't actually apply. I mean, I've seen Deepak Chopra on stage giving a speech, and they go to the audience, and somebody, he's like, yeah, I'm a quantum physicist, and nothing that you're saying even means anything. And it's just like, oh, you're just talking and you're using these big words, so it makes people think that you know what you're talking about, but you don't. Hey, we got indie film in the building. Bah, 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 bah. I don't know who Amber is, but hello, Amber. Welcome, buddy. We have proven that Jordan Peterson does not believe in God. And not only that, but he's purposely using semantics to obfuscate that point.
Did the events historically occur? Regardless of how true the message is today, did the events described actually happen? And for some inexplicable reason, rather than simply saying, well, the Exodus didn't actually happen, it's a fictional story, but it contains themes that are universally true about human nature, Peterson refers to it as a meta-truth.
They happened in a meta manner.
And claims that it's still actually happening today.
They're still happening.
And I haven't just cherry-picked a bad example of Peterson failing to properly explain his views. This keeps happening. Here's another example, this time on the story of Cain and Abel from the book of Genesis, this time taken from a recent podcast that Peterson conducted with my good friend Mohammed Hijab.
I did a lecture.
So Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve. There's a whole story with them, but basically I believe it was Cain who killed Abel. There was a whole story with the two of them, and I think it has to. Actually, I'm not going to say that. I thought it had to do something with the prodigal son, but that might be a different story. But sons of Adam and Eve.
Lecture last night at the Apollo on the story of Cain and Abel.
Yes.
And one of the things that I proposed was that not only did that story happen, but it's always happening.
Yes.
It always happened. It's happening right now, and it's always going to happen into the future. And so
Yes.
I would say, to some degree, the mere reduction of these profound stories to a historical reality.
Meaning a mere reduction of mere, not mirror, it says mirror, but a mere reduction of these profound stories to a historical reality means asking whether or not they happened. Reducing these profound stories to the historical reality means asking, did they happen or not? Klug says, I find that the more intelligent someone is, the harder it is to speak their mind. I think Peterson is too stuck in his internal thought process to a point that it comes out bad sometimes. Well, you are definitely hitting on something, and it's not about intelligence. It's about who you surround yourself with, and it's about being grounded. It's about this is academia. This is what happens when you go to school, then you go to college, then you go to postgrad, then you become a professor. You talk about these things in these very theoretical and nebulous ways but you don't actually have an opportunity to have to explain these big concepts to people who haven't studied them as well as you do. And that's why, with a lot of younger liberal college students, they can talk up and down, and they have this air of looking down their nose at you because they went to university and you didn't. But they can't even articulate what it is that they think. And when they try to, it's very clear that what they think doesn't make sense. But they haven't had to actually deal with that or confront that, because everybody in academia is just pushing along. And I mean, that's somewhat reductionist, but kind of not really.
Is an underestimate of their truth, because they're
So to say that they happen is an underestimate. To say that something happened historically is to underestimate their truth. No. Listen to that again.
historical reduction of these profound stories to a historical reality is an underestimate of their truth.
To reduce these to their historical occurrence is to underestimate their truth. That's not what truth means. What he's saying is to ask whether or not, or to only care about whether it actually historically happened, is disregarding the message that's in there. And I don't think that's the case. I think we can understand, just like with the Star Wars MCU. I mean, even not even simple stuff like that, but classic literature. We know that Lord of the Flies is a fictional book. That doesn't mean that we're underestimating the truth of the values that are talked about. That's just wrong. And as I think we will see a little bit more as we go through this, this is something that Christians in general, but specifically Peterson, will only apply to religion and God. He can take it out of religion, take it out of God, and of course he can see that, hey, did X happen? Is a very simple yes or no question. Maybe, I don't know if we don't have the tools to measure. But did you go to the bathroom yesterday? To reduce that to a historical reality is to underestimate the truth of whether or not I went to the bathroom. What are you talking about, bro?
Because they're a strange kind of truth, because they're the truth that always happened and is happening now and always will happen. So,
and again, that just begs the question. You are just saying that these things are so true that whether or not they actually happen, they're true. And they're always happening. But that's the question. That is what is being asked of you.
the Cain and Abel story, for example.
Yeah.
You have a story of the eternal battle between something like the spirit of joyful and appropriate sacrifice, which is characterized as Abel, and the spirit of resentful resentment against the structure of existence as a consequence of thrownness and the shaking of the fist at God. And that's always happening.
Once again, Peterson is simply describing good fiction. Did the events occur? No. But the story describes truths about human nature that have always been true. That's literally what this reduces to. I mean, imagine if someone were to ask me, did the Battle of Hogwarts really happen? Like, was it a historical event? And I said, it happened with such reality that it's still happening. Because the importance of sacrificing our safety to protect good against evil, and the notion that, like, evil is always pressing up against the walls of our castle, man, that's a deeper truth than calling it mere fiction can capture.
I love how he put the man in there, because how Peterson's, well, that's exactly what it's talking about, man. Well, I mean, well, not really, but okay. It's like, well, no, not really, but man. Oh, man. I'm going to run that back. That was funny.
Because the importance of sacrificing our safety to protect good against evil, and the notion that, like, evil is always pressing up against the walls of our castle, man, that's a deeper truth than calling it mere fiction can capture. I would sound like an idiot, and this is my utter confusion with Jordan Peterson. Why is he so hesitant to answer the question that everybody wants to know? Do you think these events actually took place? Did a man literally rise from the dead as a historical fact? Did the Jews, once enslaved in Egypt, travel to the Promised Land through the wilderness? And since Peterson sees these stories as fictional, meta-truths,
In a meta manner.
the answer is clearly no. Sure, the ideas contained within the stories are real and pertain to the ongoing human condition. Okay, that doesn't make the events meta-true. It just makes them like any other story of ahistorical events that yet speak to an important aspect of human experience. Fiction. This is something that Douglas Murray actually points out to Jordan Peterson, comparing religious stories with the stories of the novelist Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky, obviously, if you say is Dostoevsky true, you need to say in what sense. But then,
right, and in what sense? And that's the obfuscation that Peterson is. I hesitate to say he's doing it on purpose. He doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. He's not trying to convert people to Christianity. I think it's a personal bias that he just doesn't see, that because the messages, the themes of the Bible are so true to him, then that's all that matters. And so same thing with Dostoevsky. Blech. Like whether or not it's fiction or nonfiction, the message and the impact that it has, I get that a lot of people are asking, okay, well, in what sense? But when we're talking about the Bible, when we're talking about religion, and we're talking about specific historical events, did it happen or did it not happen?
I mean, the issue with the Bible, the issue with Christianity, the issue with faith is that it's obviously different. It must be in a different realm. It's clearly in a different realm because it claims different things for itself. Dostoevsky doesn't demand that we believe that Raskolnikov lived. The Bible, if you're going to be a believer, you have to be able to say, in the words of the Creed, that you believe in the virgin birth, that you believe, most importantly, in the resurrection.
And those are right there. Two huge things that are, according to the laws of physics, impossible. And that's what the whole religion is based on. Because if Jesus wasn't born to a virgin, if Jesus wasn't resurrected, if Jesus didn't walk on water, if Jesus didn't, then yes, all of the things that he said that we like, we can still like them. But it creates a very different circumstance for the world as to whether we are talking about a fictional story or a historical reality.
And as you well know, Jordan, many of us can walk 99% of the way there in terms of belief in the truth of the story, or as Betjeman puts it, but is it true? Is it true? And then stumble on the last thing.
Quite right. And listen to what Peterson has to say about Dostoevsky.
When I read something like a novel by Dostoevsky, I think, well, is this true? And the answer is, well, those precise events never happened.
Really? Really? This is one of the smartest men, arguably on the planet. Certainly one of the smartest men in the public eye. So if he's clearly able to determine, hey, this is a question that doesn't require a very long thought out answer. It's a very simple question. Did those precise events happen or not? No, they didn't happen. So now, even though they didn't happen, let's talk about the fictional events and their impact on our non-fictional real reality. But you switch Dostoevsky with the Bible, and he just loses it. Listen one more time. I mean, come on, man.
Basis, it's not true. But then there's something wrong with that description.
Hold on.
Peterson has to say about Dostoevsky.
When I read something like a novel by Dostoevsky, I think, well, is this true? And the answer is, well, those precise events never happened. So
why can't you just say that about the Bible?
On that basis, it's not true. But then there's something wrong with that description, because the characterizations in Dostoevsky are so true that in some sense they've never been surpassed.
See?
Okay, and that's fair. That's a fair, in terms of a esoteric philosophical position. That's fair. But where was that caveat with Exodus?
How hard was that? Those precise events never happened, but the characterizations are deeply true. Why can you not say the same thing about Cain and Abel or about Exodus? I mean, just compare these two responses.
When I read something like a novel by Dostoevsky, I think, well, is this true? And the answer is, well, those precise events never happened. When I look at a story like Cain and Abel, I think, well, the question, did that happen, begs the question, what do you mean by happen? Because when you are dealing with fundamental
Depends on what your definition of is.
mental realities, and you pose a question, you have to understand that the reality of the concepts of your question, when you're digging that deep, are just as questionable as what you're questioning.
For some reason, when the fictional story in question is a scriptural story, Peterson becomes unable to describe it as fiction in the way that he would describe literally any other meaningful but ahistorical story as fiction. Indeed, he appears to become unable to string a meaningful sentence together at all when he's talking about this stuff.
So would we say, hold on. All right, get back. Hold on. Wait. So would we say that since this is the case, and we've seen the examples, and we are familiar with this, we know that there are very intelligent people who will act exactly like this and be able to speak in one way, and as soon as you talk about religion, it's a whole different game. So wouldn't we say that it's just not an academic endeavor, and it's not something that will progress our society? I mean, what am I missing here?
If the Exodus is still happening, then on the same justification that Peterson gives, Raskolnikov murdering Alyona Ivanovna is still happening too. But that would be a ridiculous characterization of what fiction is. And so if somebody asked me if the events of Crime and Punishment actually happened, I'd simply say no. Okay, next I want to give you a specific example of something which I think demonstrates how Jordan Peterson uses language in a deliberately vague and elusive manner to support his strange claims about belief in God.
So, like, obfuscating the semantics? Is that what you're getting at?
The specific example I'm going to give here is an incredibly bold claim made by Peterson in both his podcast with Jonathan Pageau and with Lex Friedman. Peterson claims in these clips that a prerequisite for being a scientist is having some kind of transcendent and deistic, that is, relating to a deity, a god, assumptions.
So really quick, the difference between deism with a D and theism with a TH is basically the ability that your God has. So a theist will believe that a God can reach into the universe and change things. So if you pray to a God can make this happen and not that happen. It can bless you and none of that. Versus a deistic God is more of like what Albert Einstein was talking about, where there is an overlord and there's different versions, but maybe set everything into motion, but then cannot set everything in motion, but the laws of physics are in play and can't reach into the universe and affect what's going on. So that's the main difference between deism with a D and theism with a TH.
Here it is in his own words.
And then I was thinking, well, what's the precondition for being a scientist? And I thought, well, in some sense, it's a there's deistic preconditions, because one of the things that characterizes scientists, and this includes people like Dawkins, who's a real scientist, is that the scientist presumes axiomatically that there's a transcendent realm outside the domain of epistemological theory.
Okay, so why is it then that to be a scientist, you have to presuppose the existence of some transcendent reality that is deistic in nature?
Guys, really quickly, if you could, please, if you have not done so already, please hit that like button. It's the biggest thing that helps get this video in the algorithm. We want this party popping. And it's free. Just hit that button.
Well, let's listen to him explaining this to Lex Friedman.
Do you believe in the transcendent if you're a scientist? And the answer is, well, not only do you believe in it more than...
Well, before he answers that, the question, let me back that up. The question was...
And the answer...
To Lex Friedman.
Do you believe in the transcendent if you're a scientist?
Do you believe in the transcendent if you are a scientist? So I would say not necessarily, and transcendent is relative. What is being transcended? Do you believe that the laws of physics can be transcended? No, until I see proof that can happen. You know, like with relativity and gravity, we understood that that's the way it was, and then we understood that, you know, it breaks down at certain points. Transcending what we understand now? Of course, to be a scientist, you have to believe that we can transcend what all the peak of human knowledge, because that's what the endeavor of science is. So again, using these words that don't really, they're not concise. They're not concise. So do you believe in the transcendent if you're a scientist?
And the answer is, well, not only do you believe in it more than anything else, because if you're a scientist, you believe in what objects to your theory more than you believe in your theory.
No. He can't be lying. This just has to be such a huge blind spot. And this is important to remember. For anybody that you look up to, for anybody that you listen to, anybody who tells you anything at all that you look up to, you have to remember that people are still people. And when it comes to psychology, Jordan Peterson may be a phenom. But when it comes to religion, it doesn't matter how much you've thought about this. If you're thinking about it on the wrong terms, then it's just not going to work. And as just Akagi saying, science doesn't care about your feelings or beliefs. And he wants so badly for his beliefs to be true that he's overlooking the actual aspects. And so what he's talking about is you believe more in what you, what did he say? You believe more in, the opposite of your theory. What did he say?
What objects to
your theory. All that is a reference to is what is called the null hypothesis in science. So in order to answer a scientific question, the scientific method calls for you to first come up with a hypothesis. I'm sure you've heard this word before, a hypothesis. In regular colloquial conversations, this is what we usually refer to as a theory. When you say, oh, I have a theory. That's in science, that's what a hypothesis is. A hypothesis means I think this could be the answer. So to make sure that you're not following your own biases or trying to just confirm what you already think, in order to perform science using the scientific method, you don't try to prove your hypothesis. You try to prove your null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is that which objects to your hypothesis. So if my hypothesis is that when I drop this thing, that it's going to fall to the ground, then what I would have to test is to try to prove that it's not going to fall to the ground. And then upon failing to prove that it's not going to fall to the ground, now I've given a credence to the notion that it is in fact going to fall.
Your theory more than you believe in your theory. Now, we got to think that through very carefully. So your theory describes the world, and as far as you're concerned, your description of the world is the world. But because you're a scientist, you think
your description of the world is the world. Again, just muddying the waters with weird, what does that mean?
Well, even though that's my description of the world and that's what I believe, there's something beyond what I believe.
Yes, that's just knowledge that is not obtained yet. That doesn't have anything to do with faith or God. It's just knowledge that we don't have yet.
And that's the object. And so I'm going to throw my theory against the object and see where it'll break.
Okay, so Peterson has just described the process of scientific inquiry, and he makes an important point, which is that scientists spend more time trying to disprove their theories than really trying to prove them, or at least they try to prove them by failure to disprove them.
See, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about, y'all. Cook says, I mean, yes, but Joseph Cog says, science doesn't care about your feelings or beliefs. Cook says, I mean, yes, but no, Cog. People's beliefs challenging the norm around something and formulating a way to try to prove that is how a lot of scientific progress is achieved. Even scientists aren't immune to having a bit of ego match around ideas and or inventions. You are correct, Kluk. However, science is a self-correcting mechanism in that way, is that it doesn't matter what your ego is. Because of that ego, because let's say you and I are both scientists, and I say, okay, I've proven God exists by this. That same ego will drive you to say, okay, well, if I can disprove that, then I'm going to be more famous than Lutch. And so it's self-correcting in the sense that, yes, we want scientists, people in general, want to be correct. But the field of science allows for everybody else who wants to also be correct to have an incentive to prove what is the accepted science wrong. And he says you cannot prove a negative. Well, bye, Amber. I still don't know who you are, but bye. But yes, so you can't prove a negative, but you can prove the opposite of a positive. So what that means is, again, if I think my dog wants to go outside because my dog wants to go outside because he's too hot inside. That might be my hypothesis. So then, in order to prove or disprove that, then now I have to find all these different ways to prove, okay, that's not the case. And if I fail in proving that, then I know, oh, it really is because it's too hot inside. But when I turn the heater off and it gets cold in here, it's colder in here than it is outside in the summer, and he still wants to go outside, now I have proven that is not the reason he wants to go outside. So it has to do with what is your starting hypothesis, and then you have to try to prove that wrong. Or more specifically, you have the hypothesis, and then you have the null hypothesis, which says the opposite of this is true. And then you try to prove the opposite of this is true. And when you fail to prove that the opposite of this is true, by default, it turns into this must be true. Jessica says, true, but that's when things can get murky and studies become corrupted by the desire to feed the ego. Exactly. And while science is the best method that we have, it only goes as far as the people performing these scientific tests of whatever sort, and the tools that we have to measure whatever it is that we're measuring. So that's what they were talking about with disproving and all that stuff. Let's go back a little second.
In what objects to your theory more than you believe in your theory. Now, we got to think that through very carefully. So your theory describes the world, and as far as you're concerned, your description of the world is the world. But because you're a scientist, you think, well, even though that's my description of the world and that's what I believe, there's something beyond what I believe. And that's the object. And so I'm going to
Oh, thank you so much for the likes, guys. I really do appreciate
throw
it.
my theory against the object and see where it'll break.
Okay, so Peterson has just described the process of scientific inquiry, and he makes an important point, which is that scientists spend more time trying to disprove their theories than really trying to prove them, or at least they try to prove them by failure to disprove them. Science usually involves testing a hypothesis against things that might disprove that hypothesis, so that if something does, we can adapt the theory. A quite straightforward observation. But listen to how Peterson characterizes it.
And so I'm going to throw my theory against the object and see where it'll break. And then I'm going to use the evidence of the break as a source of new information to revitalize my theory.
So the break, meaning if I'm testing the opposite of my hypothesis, and I find something that goes against my hypothesis, now I'm using that new information. That's a source of new information. So when, again, the hypothesis is my dog likes to go outside because it's too hot in my house. So I test the opposite of that. So, okay, I'm going to make it real. I'm going to make it colder in the house than it is outside. Does he still want to go outside? So he does want to go outside. So that break is a source of new information to revitalize my theory.
So as a scientist, you have to posit the existence of the ontological transcendent before you can move forward at all.
Whoa, hold on. All a scientist needs to posit to do science is the existence of truths that we currently don't know about. We have a theory or set of theories.
And this goes back to the transcendence thing he was talking about. That, yes, I do believe in transcendence, transcending the knowledge we already have, transcending the laws of physics by and large. That's a whole other thing. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you need the science to prove that that's even possible.
Theories, but there are lots of true things about the world that aren't encompassed by our theories. So we have to take our theory and test it against this unknown world to learn new things. But Peterson opts to describe this unknown world as the ontological transcendent.
So as a scientist, you have to posit the existence of the ontological transcendent.
Academia. This is what academia does to people. The ontological transcendence, all that means is a better understanding of where it came from. Hey, we got the free ego in the building. Said we can't wait for the day we can find a way to get some VR big titty girlfriends. Well, I don't know if the last time you've been on Pornhub, but they definitely do have the videos, and I'm not on OnlyFans, but I'm pretty sure that they'll help you out.
But that's not justified at all. I think Peterson is confusing epistemology with ontology. Epistemology is about our knowledge of things, whereas ontology...
So it says epistemology here. It says noun, philosophy. The theory of knowledge, especially with regards to its methods, validity, and scope, and the distinction between justified belief and opinion.
is about the...
And then ontology says the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being.
way they actually are.
Let me run that back so he can explain it better than I can.
Peterson is confusing epistemology with ontology. Epistemology is about our knowledge of things, whereas ontology is about the way they actually are. For an example of the difference, if I flip a coin, then epistemologically, it could be heads and it could be tails. But ontologically speaking, it of course has to, in fact, actually only be one of these things. So this world of truths that exists outside of our current scientific description of the world may be epistemologically transcendent. That is, it transcends what we currently know scientifically.
Exactly what I said.
But it's not ontologically transcendent. That is, transcendent in the religious sense of actually transcending nature. At least we have no reason to believe that. Remember, Peterson is just talking here about truths outside of our current scientific theories.
So your theory describes the world, and as far as you're concerned, your description of the world is the world. But because you're a scientist,
Again,
you think, well, even though that's my description of the world and that's what I believe, there's something beyond what I believe.
But instead of just referring to this as the unknown or
Exactly. There's something beyond what I believe. That's just a thing I don't know. It has nothing to do with belief. It has to do with knowledge. Again, I'm trying to be very charitable to Jordan Peterson because I do look up to him. I think he's a very intelligent man. I think he has helped a lot of people. But like so many other people who are a positive influence on my life, it gets to religion and it all just breaks down. Why talk about the transcendent beliefs as in the context of science instead of just the things we don't know? I have a friend who very much like this, psychology major, went to we were good friends in way back in middle school. Hey, we got JR in the building. What is good, JR? We have proven irrefutably that Dr. Jordan B Peterson is an atheist. But I had a friend who like I said, when we were friends from grade school. And then she continued on in psychology, getting her bachelor's, getting her master's, getting her PhD or whatever. And as time went on, the way she spoke got weirder and weirder and weirder in this exact same way. She would just talk like she was writing a term paper when her and I were just talking. I'm like, why are you talking this way? And it's not some type of flex. It's just that that's the world that they live in. And they're so removed from the actual life of real people that they don't know that they're speaking like a weirdo.
Peterson decides to use the term transcendent.
Ontological transcendent.
Why? If you ask me, it's got something to do with the religious connotations of a word like transcendent. And so, instead of just making a simple and obvious claim that scientists have to believe in truths that lie outside of our current understanding.
Yes, because remember, the original statement was that you have to believe in the transcendent to even be a scientist. Okay, again, transcending what? Transcending the knowledge I already have? Or transcending the knowledge that we believe is possible? Those are two different things. And as Cosmic Skeptic here is saying, it seems like a purposeful, conscious decision to steer the conversation about knowledge, science, and understanding into a realm where divinity, religion, faith, all of that stuff applies when it shouldn't.
Which, of course, they do. Science is literally the process of uncovering these truths as best we can. Peterson decides to claim that scientists have to believe in the ontologically transcendent. I hope you can see why this is misleading. So why is Peterson making this mistake? Why is he suggesting that believing in truths that are outside of our current scientific description of the world requires believing in the ontologically transcendent? Well, I think it might have something to do with something that we've just heard him say.
So your theory describes the world, and as far as you're concerned, your description of the world is the world.
Here's the problem.
I knew there was something weird, but where are we? Oh no, Jesus. Oh, what's happening? Oh, there we go. I knew there was something weird with that phrase. Your description of the world is the world. That doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't really mean anything, and it's taking what the world actually is and your understanding or your description or whatever. Those are two different things. So let's see what he has to say about it.
A scientist does not think that their description of the world is the world. They think it accurately describes part of how the world functions. Indeed, to be a good scientist at all, a scientist has to understand that there does exist a world beyond their current scientific description to be explored and tested against. So to say that a scientist thinks that their theory is the world in its totality
is bullshit. It's bullshit that allows for the any type of religious anything to be shoved into this conversation and make it seem like, oh yeah, well, it's not anything completely different because everybody who does science believes in the transcendent.
is totally wrong and quite bizarre. And even more bizarre
is
what
right.
I've just said is something that Peterson says himself right afterwards, seemingly contradicting himself immediately.
So your theory describes the world, and as far as you're concerned, your description of the world is the world. But because you're a scientist, you think, well, even though that's my description of the world and that's what I believe, there's something beyond what I believe.
So here is an apparent contradiction. He says that to a scientist, their description of the world is the world, but then immediately says that a scientist will recognize that there's more to the world than their description of it.
Make sense. That don't make sense. And of course, again, I am not saying that Peterson is dumb. What I'm saying is that the semantic obfuscation that happens by using dogmatic language and having dogmatic beliefs allows somebody as intelligent as Jordan Peterson to speak like a fool because of his beliefs. Discog says, that's why I hate the phrase perception is reality. What if your perception sucks? What if you're crazy? What then? I mean, that's kind of, I get where you're coming from. That's a little bit different. I don't think, that's certainly not scientific when people say that. And, that's more of like if you wake up and think, oh, this is definitely going to be a shitty day. Well, you're not very likely to have a good day. That's really what that's, referring to. I don't really think people use that in a scientific context too often.
Make that make sense. Well, this is
he said the exact same thing I said.
why I think we get this strange claim about scientists presuming the ontologically transcendent. Because Peterson has claimed that a scientist's theory to them is the world, then when a scientist considers things that currently lie outside of their theory, they must be considering things that are not of the world. Or in other words, transcendent, in the sense that they actually transcend the world. That's where I think he's getting that word from. So I said a moment ago that he's using the word transcendent just because of its religious connotations, but here's another option. Maybe he really thinks that a scientist's theory is to them the entire world, and so when they think of something outside of their theory, they're thinking of something transcendent. But that doesn't make sense either, because of course, to simply recognize that something exists outside of our current description is not to recognize the ontologically transcendent. It's just to say that there are things about nature that we currently do not know.
Yeah, it's just called learning.
That's it. But Peterson actually responds to my objection here as follows.
This is a very complicated topic, right? Do you believe in a
Is it though?
transcendent reality? So, okay, now let's say you buy the argument I just made on the natural front. You say,
which I don't.
Yeah, that's just nature. That's not God.
Yes, that is pretty much what I'm saying. This world that exists outside of our current scientific description does not have to be God, does not have to be transcendent.
And this is exactly when people bring up the idea of supernatural, paranormal, stuff like that. These words do not make sense. These words are nonsensical. There cannot be anything that would fit the description of supernatural. Things either exist or they don't exist. If they exist, they are part of the natural world. If they don't exist, they're not part of the natural world. Am I wrong? Explain to me where in that binary can something else exist? It's either things either exist or they do not exist. Things that exist are natural. That's what existence means. Things that don't exist obviously don't exist, so they're not supernatural.
It can just be the rest of nature that we don't yet understand.
And then I'd say, well, what makes you think you know what nature is? Like, see, the problem with that argument is that it already presumes a reductionist, materialist, objective view of what constitutes nature.
Wait, hold on. Do you see what's just happened? Peterson says, first, that scientists believe in something outside of their current theoretical description of the world. I agree. He then says that this has to be transcendent and deistic. I say, well, hold on, why can't it just be nature? And he says, well, can you prove that? Can you prove that it's just nature? How do you even know what nature is? Well, no, I can't prove that.
Sounds like a little bit of copium.
But I never claimed to be able to.
See, I missed that part. The burden of proof is on he who makes the claim. If you're not claiming anything, then you have no burden of proof.
Excuse me, but I'm not the one claiming scientists have to be materialists. You're the one claiming that they have to be deistic. You're the one making the claim, not me. If I made the claim that scientists have to presuppose naturalism, then yes, I'd need to give some evidence for this. But I'm not making that claim. You're making the claim that belief in something outside of our current theories has to be, for some reason, transcendent and deistic, and can't just be natural.
And of course, because he's not giving any explanation or proof or reasoning or evidence behind that, this falls under Mr. Peterson just saying things. It's sad. It's sad. I never thought that Peterson would be somebody that would be levying that against. But even the smartest among us can talk out of our ass.
You're the one who has to back that up. So the first mistake that I think Peterson makes on this science and religion stuff is to confuse facts that are not currently encompassed by our scientific description of the world with ontologically transcendent truths. But then he also, as a second step, and basically with no justification, claims that these transcendent truths have to be deistic in nature.
What's the precondition for being a scientist? And I thought, well, in some sense, it's a there's deistic precondition.
Where the hell did that bit come from? Well, for all my searching, this is the best explanation that I can find from Peterson.
So as a scientist, you have to posit the existence of the ontological transcendent before you can move forward at all. But more, you have to posit that contact with the ontological transcendent, annoying though it is because it upsets your apple cart, is exactly what will in fact set you free.
So I gotta hear that again. What the fuck did you just say? What did you
Can move forward at all. But more,
one more.
you have to, as a scientist, you have to posit the existence of the ontological transcendent.
Okay, we have to posit the existence of the ontological transcendent. So he's saying, as a scientist, we have to acknowledge the existence of that which exists outside of the understanding of the world that we already have, which again we don't agree with. But let's see where he goes. So you have to agree with the existence of the ontological transcendent
before you can move forward at all.
Okay. But more than that,
you have to posit that contact with the ontological transcendent.
So contact with, let's call it divinity, contact with supernatural divinity, if we want to put that.
Annoying though it is because it upsets your apple cart, is exactly what will in fact set you free.
So he's saying that because upsetting the apple cart, meaning you have this idea of the world, of a naturalist world. And so engaging with the notion that the ontological transcendence exists is annoying because it upsets the apple cart. It upends your worldview. But then But that is what will set you free. Somehow. We'll get further. But so the Frigo says, hey, we got George Baines in the building. Welcome. So this is funny. I need 10 degrees to follow this. No, you don't, sir. You just need one Indian Jesus. I have got you. Do not worry. We are breaking this down and making sure nobody is talking some woo-woo bullshit over our heads. But welcome to the party. Glad you are here. So Frigo said, I think supernatural is an outdated term for shit that wouldn't have been considered unexplainable by anything other than higher powers in the past. But now we've discovered a lot about the world. We're still finding shit out, and I guarantee our tech will look like fucking magic in a few decades. Clark, I think it was Arthur Clark. I don't know. Some dude in who worked in thermodynamics. The third law of thermodynamics. Is it thermodynamics? I don't know. Clark's third law of whatever it is that we study. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Exactly what the free ego is saying. We have technology right now that you and I don't know about. It's being developed, or it's part of the military or the space programs or whatever. There's technology that exists that we would think is magic, simply because we don't understand how it works. Same way, if you take a fucking light bulb, I'm not even talking about a smartphone. Take a light bulb. Take an LED light to the 1500s, and they will think you are performing magic. That's just the way it works. That is how technological advancement goes on. So again, getting back to Peterson here, he's saying, acknowledging that you are dealing with the existence of ideas that are outside what's accepted is going to upset you because you believe in naturalism. However, accepting that that is the case will set you free.
So then you accept the proposition that there is a transcendent reality, and that contact with that transcendent reality is redemptive in the most fundamental sense. Because if it wasn't, well, why would you bother making contact with it? You're going to make everything worse or better?
Right. So Peterson is clarifying that in order to do science, a scientist must be motivated. They must somehow think that by discovering new truths, they're achieving some good or doing something worthwhile. Of course, this is true in a sense. In order to do anything, we need a motivation to do it. But
Sure.
Peterson insists that a scientist's motivation has to be that they'll be set free by it, and that this will be redemptive.
And of course, this is not true. There are people who do science at very different levels, from the basic, cooking and baking is science. You don't need to have some type of desire to be set free by the ontological transcendent because you put the cake in the oven for the proper amount of time. It's just a whole lot of cope to say that, well, since science exists, it's got to be God. That's not how it works, homie. I am sorry. That's not how it works. Guys, if you're just joining us, welcome to the party. I am your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. And we now have proof that Jordan B. Peterson is not, in fact, a believer in God and is, in fact, an atheist. And so for this amazing information, if you could do me the small favor of just tapping that like button, and if you really like it, that subscribe button, I would be eternally grateful.
Why would he choose these terms? Again, like transcendent, I think that he's purposefully using religiously charged language to make his quite straightforward observation.
You don't say. It's almost like some people out here in these YouTube streets continue to talk about obfuscating language or semantics to make a straightforward observation seem very different than it is.
Seem like it has religious significance where it in fact does not. One of the most famous passages from the Gospel of John is John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And of course, redemption is the key project of the New Testament.
So let me even stop and go back to this quote itself, this Bible verse. Come on.
Set you free.
So, it says, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is a very common, saying. This is a very common notion. This is a very commonly referred to verse from the Bible. Now, do you have to believe in anything in order to read this and integrate this into your life? Aside from the notion of the statement itself, no. And you can try it out and see if it works, and then whatever. Why is it that we can't just do that? Take the stuff that works. Take the stuff that we all agree is what we want for each other, for society, for the world, whatever. Take that stuff and just agree. Everybody's talking about division all the time and coming together, and this is it right here. This is it. Yes, it's from the Bible. There's other things that aren't going to be from the Bible. But if you, as the religious right specifically, maintain this inability to separate values from beliefs, I promise you, the left wing is going to win. The left wing, the evil heathen atheists, you will never, ever, ever get them back on the board of believing in a God the same way, in this supernatural divinity, whatever. It's just not going to happen. You have people here and there, but that is a losing battle. But why do you care if those people believe in what you believe in the first place? Is it because you really genuinely care that they don't end up in this hell that you believe in? Or is it more because you want the values that you have to be played out in society? If it's the latter, then shut the fuck up about what you believe and start focusing on what you want people to do.
Free. And of course, redemption is the key project of the New Testament. So Peterson is using words that play on Christian themes, but as I say, I think he's doing this unjustifiably. For example, why does a scientist have to believe that science will set them free? Well, this is something that Lex Friedman actually asks.
Why does the contact with the transcendent?
And I just want, I'm feeling it tonight. We're going to do a StreamYard panel. So I'm going to drop the link for StreamYard. I want to hear from you guys because this is a big one, and I want to hear from you guys.
And set you free as a scientist.
Because you assume, I mean, freedom in the most fundamental sense. It's like, well, freedom from want, freedom from disease, freedom from ignorance, right? That it informs you.
But do you see how this is
not how people use these words? Is that what he's about to say? He's using these words, and again, I keep using this word esoteric because I don't know a better one. Just this weird, like technically correct, but not really the way. That's how it's language. When I always come back to the example of the word literally. Literally got changed to the opposite of literally, while simultaneously still meaning literally. The opposite of literally used to be figuratively, and still is. But because of the usage, people are, oh my God, it was literally the worst night of my life. They've changed the meaning of the word. And that's what people like Peterson who speak like this do. So let's see if he finishes the sentence the exact same way.
Freedom from ignorance,
that I would.
right? That it informs you.
But do you see how this is a bit ridiculous?
Okay.
Peterson just said that it's because a scientist thinks that science will set us free from ignorance or inform us.
Freedom from ignorance, right? That it informs you.
But what a strange way to phrase it. Instead of saying that a scientist thinks that science will inform us or increase our knowledge or something like that, Peterson insists that science will set us free from ignorance. There's nothing strictly wrong with using this phrasing. It's a bit more poetic and pretty. But here it's clearly being used in such a way as to suggest that science is religious in nature by making a not so subtle nod to the Bible. Same thing with redemptive.
Redemptive in the most fundamental sense, because if it wasn't, well, why would you bother making contact with it? You're going to make everything worse or better?
Sure, science can increase our well-being by curing diseases and the like, but the word redemptive seems like it's been chosen to inject religious imagery. And if you don't believe me, just think about it for a second. Imagine that I were on a road trip and I were reading a map.
What's your name?
That map told me where to exit the highway. And then I claimed that because this map informed me of something that I didn't already know, the map didn't just inform me or help me direct my car, no.
It set you free from the ignorance of not knowing where you're going. This is what I was talking about. What I was just doing is pull up some Deepak Chopra clips, the one I was talking about using language. I don't want to keep saying this obfuscation, but using language in almost a predatory way. But we'll get to that. We're coming up on the end here. I'm going to show a couple clips, and then we'll go to the panel. Any film says literally is still literally. Literally. Just because it is used wrong by white girls from the valley doesn't change that. Are you sure about that, sir? Are you sure you're sure about that? Literally definition. Where do they have it? So obviously the main definition, used for emphasis to express strong feeling while, oh yeah, there you go. Used for emphasis to express strong feeling while not being literally true. While not being literally true. Literally, the definition of literally was literally changed. That is what I'm talking about, dude. That is exactly what I'm saying. And so when people decide to use language in a certain way, it absolutely affects how that word, how that whatever goes on to be used in the future. So yes, it absolutely matters. It absolutely matters what Valley Girls and whoever and people in general say. Byron said, fun facts. The girls from the Valley spoke that way for a summer, and then something set them free. Maybe they did some science and got in touch with the ontologically transcendent.
My ignorance, after I contacted the ontologically transcendent, that is, the directions that were outside of my knowledge, and this has been redemptive in the sense that it's made things better for me. I'm now going in the right direction. That's right, reading a map has deistic preconditions.
Deistic preconditions.
Because to read a map, you have to believe that there exists the ontologically transcendent, that which is outside of your current description of the world. And you have to believe that by engaging with it, you set yourself free in a way that's redemptive. That's the idea that you're being sold here. I really hope that you can see through it now. The thing that Peterson is actually describing when he talks about how science works is about as straightforward and banal as my description of how a map works.
You don't have to live in 1984, brother, but in 2022, literally does not literally mean literally.
But just by dressing it up in this religious imagery, he makes it sound a lot more profound than it actually is if you're not listening carefully. And not only does he make it sound more profound, he makes it sound more religious. So just like when he describes fictional stories in the Bible as meta-truths, He's allowing himself to sound like he's committing himself to quite profound spiritual, supernatural, and religious claims without actually doing anything of the kind. All of this serves to obscure a truly straightforward and ordinary secular observation about how science works behind a wall of religious imagery, which, intentionally or not, is vastly misleading. I mean, let's put this argument first in Jordan Peterson's own terms, and then in more straightforward language.
New poll up. Hit that shit.
Jordan Peterson has given an argument that scientists must assume a transcendent deistic reality. And that's because a scientist must believe in a transcendent realm outside of the world, contact with which is redemptive and sets us free. Now let's hear the same thing without the poetic terminology and without confusing a scientist's description of the world for the world. Peterson argues that scientists must believe in truths not currently captured by our scientific description of the world, and that uncovering these truths will make us less ignorant and sometimes allow us to improve our welfare, such as in medical research. That's it.
That's it. That's it. All of this fancy wording, fancy ontological transcendence. You have to be, you can't be a secular individual if you're a scientist, because when you engage in science, you're agreeing that the ontological. All that it means is that if you're doing science, you accept the possibility that there are things that you don't know. Hey, we got Doug Weiss in the building. Welcome, Doug. What is going on, brother? We have just proven that not only is Dr. Jordan B. Peterson an atheist, but sometimes he's straight out bullshit. I'll play that part back for you before we go on to the other two videos, but I am very interested in hearing from you guys, especially if you are Christian. I am very interested in hearing from you guys. I'm going to drop the link, and I want to hear from you.
That is what he's argued. And somehow this leads to deism? I just don't see it. This is why I think you have to be duly cautious when dealing with Jordan Peterson. By subtly playing around with definitions and by using
subtly playing around with definitions. What's another word or another phrase to semantic obfuscation?
Terms that aren't always strictly inaccurate, but in highly unusual contexts, he can begin making bizarre claims like, you can't be secular in a museum.
Are you looking at art? Yes. Well, what makes you think you're secular then?
Or
you can't look at art without believing in God.
Scientists have to presuppose deism.
There's deistic preconditions.
Or
is there though?
The Exodus is still happening.
They happened in a meta manner. They're still happening.
I think
are they though?
That a good summary of where it is that Peterson goes wrong when talking about religion can be found in the following clip.
Facts, George. Facts, George. Word salad. This is directly one of the logical fallacies that we're talking about. It's not just talking shit. It's specifically, and again, I was going to say obfuscating, but it's specifically trying to change the conversation to make it more in your realm. And it's just bullshit. It is bullshit.
In which he considers whether the Christian logos, that is, Jesus himself, is divine.
The divinity of Christ. Well, I would say the same problems with the question formulation obtain. What do you mean by divine? And
oh, here we go. What do you mean by divine? What do you mean by Jesus? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that?
Also, what do you mean by Christ? These are very, very difficult questions. Now, I believe that, for all intents and purposes, I believe that the logos is divine. Insofar as if by divine you mean of ultimate value, of ultimate transcendent value, yes, it's divine.
But
is it though?
Who does mean that by divine? I mean, seriously.
Again, this is a big point in, is that what people mean by that? And so at first we were just talking about the word God. Is that what people mean when they say God? The highest value, that exist in a hierarchy of values. Let's listen to this again and see if this is what people mean when they say the word divine. Divine. Yep, this is I've been referencing this all night. It depends on what you mean by the definition of is.
Now, I believe that for all intents and purposes, I believe that the Logos is divine. Insofar as if by divine you mean of ultimate value, of ultimate transcendent value.
Of ultimate transcendent value. Is that synonymous with what people say when they use the word divine?
Yes.
Sure about that?
It's divine.
But who does mean that by divine? I mean, seriously, when somebody asks if Jesus is divine, they're clearly asking if he is God, or at least God-like.
Or supernatural.
By simply redefining divine to mean something more convenient and more secular, Peterson can then say that the Logos is divine. But he's simply now talking about something completely different, and something that isn't even supernatural anymore. In conclusion,
so we got two people on the poll. We got 50-50 is Peterson being disingenuous. So if you think that he is not being disingenuous, if you are a Christian, those two things, you don't have to be both, but those two things will get you to the front of the line. Those who are specifically who I want to hear from when I drop the link. Everybody is welcome, but that's really what I'm interested in.
I think that we should stop allowing Jordan Peterson to get away with a vagueness of language that we wouldn't accept in any other context. He's so loose with definitions and meanings when talking about religion that, as Muhammad Hijab points out, he begins to sound like a postmodernist.
When I was reading your book, you were talking about some psychological theory, which I don't forget. I forget what it is right now. But you mentioned something. You said there's, the problem with this such and such theory is that it doesn't have any evidence. Full stop. Categorical. All this, what you're doing now, you didn't mention that. You didn't say, well, it depends on what you mean by this. It depends on what sorry to say, Gary. But it depends on what you mean by this. It depends on what you mean. You become postmodern all of a sudden.
I mean, just...
For those of you who don't know, postmodernism is like a dirty, dirty, dirty word to Peterson. So the fact that he is embodying postmodernism in his approach to talking about religion is a direct red flag that he is experiencing a blind spot. Ron said, Legos, both hurt if you step on one in the middle of the night.
Listen here to Peterson asking, does God exist?
People say to me, do you believe in God? And
if you haven't seen this, he's replaying this clip from the beginning. If you weren't here from the beginning, this is what started this whole thing off. And it goes right with what Doug is saying. And again, I have so much respect for Jordan Peterson. So much. More than most. But the point is that we want to be able to hold the people that we look up to accountable when they need. Doug says, loose man, lackadaisical, nonchalant, notwithstanding a serious demeanor. Yeah. So the question, let me back this up.
People say to me, do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question.
Are there though?
What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And
when I say do, I'm asking if you accept or deny. When I say believe, I mean accept or deny the claim that I'm asking you about. Believe means accepting the claim of existence. And God is, that's the one where, okay, what do you mean by God? That's a good question. But other than that, depends on what the definition of is.
You say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean, except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, We don't really know what any of those things mean.
You become postmodern all of a sudden.
Just imagine that he is being asked about literally any other context. Say, Dr. Peterson, do you believe that George Washington crossed the Delaware River in 1776?
Okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean
George Washington?
And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean. We don't really know what any of those things mean.
In any other context, we would accuse Peterson of purposefully obfuscating the question.
Oh, he said it! He said it. Purposefully obfuscating the question. And it's not just Peterson. It's not just Peterson. Peterson is in the hot seat right now because he is somebody who should be smart enough to understand that this is not proper argumentation. He should be smart enough to understand that this is exactly as George said, complete word salad. Yeah, Divine Rod taking money in the waters to a whole new level. But it's not just Peterson. This is any religious apologist. This is anybody who is trying to have an intellectual academic conversation about the rationality of the evidence for the existence of God. This is the standard. And it goes from the dumbest person that you know all the way up to people like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is way smarter than I think I will ever be. But when it comes to religion, he's got a blind spot. Yes, that is your offense.
In order to avoid giving a straight answer. Is that what he's doing here? Well, that would depend on what you mean by is and that and doing. but yes, probably, yeah. So, Jordan Peterson seems, to me, to be an atheist. I mean, he thinks that God is a fictional character.
God is the ultimate fictional character.
And that
So that was the clip that I was going to replay. In case you missed it, let's just double back. And the irrefutable proof that Dr. Jordan B Peterson doesn't believe in God.
I mean, he thinks that God is a fictional character.
Are you ready?
God is the ultimate fictional character.
And that religious scripture is true, but only true in the sense that it contains a meaningful message that speaks to the human experience, regardless of its historicity. I just wish that in future he would take the advice of Rule 10 and be a bit more precise in exercising this particular opinion. I've been Alex O'Connor, or Cosmic Skeptic.
So that, I think, is irrefutable. Jordan Peterson is an atheist. There's no two ways about it. If you do not believe that God is someone or something that exists, and you state very clearly and directly that you think God is the ultimate fictional character, then by definition, you, sir, are an atheist. Frigo says, not gonna lie, it makes me like Peterson more to know that he isn't perfect in both actions and words, because a lot of people with large audiences try to engineer their public appearances to look always good. Very interesting take. That is exactly what I'm looking to lay out here. So the fact that you got it, you hit the nail on the head. I love it. This doesn't mean that we throw Peterson in the garbage. This doesn't mean that he's some dummy who doesn't know what he's talking about. All this means is that he's human. That's all it means. He's human. He has biases. He believes in this bullshit. And he's just demoted. All right. I mean, I don't even put it that way, because I expect this. I expect this from believers. I expect them to have a special pleading case for why this makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. That's the power. That's the power of dogma. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you think about all this stuff. I want you to I want to if anybody can answer to this and explain to me why this isn't proof that this man is in fact an atheist. I'd love to hear it. So I'm going to drop the link. We have a couple other short videos that that I want to watch. So I was talking about Deepak Chopra and how he is very similarly, let's just say, full of shit. So there was a speech or whatever that he did years back. I don't know when this is from. Well, this video is from 9 years ago, and I don't think it was super fresh at the time. But he was talking about infinity and how the notion of infinity, because infinity exists and quantum mechanics, and you can manifest your own whatever, some bullshit like that. And so this is a real theoretical physicist. After he finished his presentation, this guy came up and said this.
Mladinov.
And so, Leonard, you are a quantum physicist?
I'm a theoretical physicist, and I'm also writing a book with Stephen Hawking, so I could comment on the God question with Stephen Hawking.
So, in the spirit of our no comments, just questions, what's your question? And to whom? I'll hold the mic.
Oh, you hold the mic. All right. That means it really has to be a question. Okay.
All right, this is my form of
Would be to Deepak to say, would you like to have a short course in quantum mechanics sometime so that we can straighten out your slightly misuse of quantum notation?
Thank you, Leonard.
I would be honored, sir, and I accept your offer with great gratitude. And I would like to be educated so I can be clearer in my dialogue. By the way, today is Einstein's birthday.
I'm not the only one who saw that, right? Oh yeah, it's Einstein's birthday.
So we are at a very fitting place, and it just occurred to me 3.14 is the approximation of the first approximation of pi, which refers to infinity. So as long as your quantum physics explanations help me understand infinity, I would be honored.
That would be good. But what?
So that's where we're starting. As long as you can help me understand infinity. Remember, Deepak Chopra is up here preaching to everybody about quantum mechanics and about what infinity can do.
We'll have to keep it local, though. I don't think we can make it non-local.
No.
So again, what that was a joke about the difference between in quantum mechanics. There's things that are local, there's things that are non-local, and it's very confusing. But Deepak Chopra knows that that is the case, but he doesn't understand the difference and assumes that the rest of us don't know the difference. And so he uses his own kind of definitions to squeak it into religious-like stuff. And so that was the joke I was making.
But
can I bother you for just a second? What is it?
Sir, do you, sir, believe in the infinite?
All right. Are you ready? The question was, do you, sir, believe in the infinite?
I believe I understand to some extent the concept of infinity. I'm not sure what it means to believe in the infinite.
Okay.
What are you, a loser?
Do you think that your mathematics requires the infinite to explain things that you explain to people?
What? This is what happens when you get somebody who actually understands the bullshit that you are spewing.
We do use the concept of infinity quite a lot.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yep, that's a winner. The infinity is a word, so therefore all of the bullshit that I just told you is real.
You're welcome.
What is it about Deepak's use of quantum physics that bothers you?
The term non-local, the use was not correct, and the correlations of the, the pacemaker and the different electrical things going on.
I have to disagree, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, no shit.
Since you said that.
You know, you're
But,
I happen to.
so I would love to. I'd love to talk about
I
it.
think consciousness is non-local.
I'm sorry.
I think consciousness is non-local.
Conscious death.
Consciousness.
Oh,
Is non-local.
yeah. I've never really run across a definition of consciousness that I understood. So maybe you could teach me something.
Field, a superposition of possibilities.
Okay. Well.
See, so none of us really understand what a superposition of all possibilities. What exactly does that mean? I don't know, but it sounds like a thing, right? But to somebody who actually understands what these words mean, it's just like, dude, you're just talking shit. What the fuck are you saying?
All right. I know what each of those words means. I still don't think I know it.
Yep. Sounds powerful. That's all that's necessary.
I'm right now talking to a conscious being.
I'm sorry?
I'm speaking to a conscious being.
I hope so.
Even though the conscious being is pretending to be a physicist.
Is pretending?
Pretending means pretending in the larger context. You are an infinite being who's taken on the identity of a physicist in space and time.
And that goes on. So we have one more, but before we get to that, we have our good friend Indie Film in the building. What is good, brother? You are muted. What is going on? All right, then.
All right, sorry.
Okay, what's good, brother?
I didn't expect all this pressure right now, man. I'm just, trying to relax and watch the show.
You click the fucking link, motherfucker.
I'm not on my deck. I don't have the fire going. I'm all discombobulated.
All right, well, make sure you set that up by the time we go over to the Discord panel where all of you should be, where we can talk about all the stuff that we can't say on YouTube. But calling you boomer and all that shit. Yo, stand up for yourself.
It's close.
What,
it's close.
What did you think of all this?
So part of I didn't jump in the beginning, so I missed some things. What I did notice that, and I don't know if it has to do with anything, but a lot of the videos look like, here's a video from Jordan Peterson 3 years ago. Here's a video from Jordan Peterson yesterday, and then we were combining them. So I don't know, has he changed in his thoughts? Was he more religious 5 years ago or 10 years ago when some of these original videos were going, and now he's not as religious, or he's taken a different tact? I'm not sure. It wasn't all from the same interview. So
no, certainly not.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical on because people change their opinions, and
right, but he just went on a world tour a couple years ago speaking about all of this stuff. So, I mean, perhaps there are changes in, when you look at the lectures that he has online from when he was just, some random psychology professor, maybe. But a lot of the stuff that we saw was from, I saw some there was with the Daily Wire watermark, and he's only been with them for a couple months, not even a year,
3 or 4 months probably. Or
so and beyond that, Peterson here is really just a figurehead for every Christian. And so the point is that he is using the word God, he is using the word divine, but he's communicating something completely different than what most people say, or what most people mean when they say God. No? Yes? Maybe?
No, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't think much about God or the divine or the supernatural. So, I mean, when he's not an atheist working for Shapiro. What about a Christian working for Ben Shapiro?
Well, yeah, but they all believe in the same kind of shit.
Ben Shapiro doesn't believe in Jesus Christ.
Well, Jews do believe in Jesus Christ. They just don't believe that he was the Messiah.
Yeah.
And they're still waiting. but they still believe in all that same shit. That's why we talk about Judeo-Christian values, because the values are essentially the same. I mean, there's kosher.
And
there's
we're
stuff
all
like
kind
that,
of
but-
pro those values in a way, right?
Say it one more time.
We're all kind of pro those values in a way.
I mean, I think all of us here
And
are,
we
yes.
distill them down, yeah.
But even though a lot between everybody here, some of us are religious and some of us are not, I do agree that we all like those values. But there's many people out in these streets, particularly atheists, who don't agree with these values. And that's where this all comes from, is that the political stuff that we talk about is so directly relevant because beliefs inform actions. No?
Ben Shapiro is sipping for Israel. Is that what
Can you have a conversation with me, sir? I'm not pulling. Okay, now I can't pull up comments when he's on.
I'm sorry.
We're not in Discord. No, for real though, people are watching. We're not in Discord. Hurry up. You got something to say or no?
I thought we were talking about the comment. No, I agree. I agree that there's a lot of people, atheist-wise, who I feel like a lot of atheists are just full of hatred in a way for any kind of religion. And if it's something that makes sense that they're like should agree on, they're going to go opposite.
Okay,
they're going to go hard.
I completely agree with you.
And
So
this guy tonight going after Peterson in some ways, it's like okay, I feel like you're just going at him. And I just like, to me, it's like believe what you want to believe. I don't care. It's not affecting me. And this guy is going after him, and it just feels like, why are you doing this? Why are you taking this?
Because as I just said, beliefs inform actions. And so if you are a thought leader, if you are somebody who speaks to the masses, and you are speaking these things to be truths that aren't in fact truths, yeah, that matters.
In listening to Peterson.
Hey, sorry, we got Mike W in the building. Welcome, Mike. Said most Christians I know don't believe Jordan Peterson is a Christian, and you are in fact correct, because he stated himself that God is the ultimate fictional character in his own words. But welcome, Mike. I would love to. I dropped the link to the panel. We're doing a StreamYard panel today, so I'd love to hear from you if you want to hit the link and come on up.
Save me. No, Mike he just said what I was going to say is like, in watching Peterson, I never picked up on a lot of religious undertones or overtones or any kind of tones. I was just listening to, make your bed. I don't know if Jesus ever told people to make their bed. Maybe he did. No. But, the 12 rules for life, I didn't catch a lot of religion out of it. So to me, if he thinks, God is fictional or real or, living in his upstairs attic, I don't know. I don't care. In a lot of ways, it doesn't affect me. Maybe I'm picking and choosing what I like about what he's saying.
I mean, no, that definitely makes sense. Clearly, as an atheist who is very in favor of Jordan Peterson's message overall, I do think that, at the end of the day, regardless of what he believes, if he is spreading a good message that helps people and helps society, great. However, once if we break that down, we can see, okay, there's, this isn't somebody that you should look to as a perfect being. This is just another person who has good ideas. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't look at anybody as a perfect being.
Exactly.
So it's like
exactly.
I mean, Obama was close, but.
So we got a couple other people in the back here. Any final words for the people indie film? The floor is yours.
I'll just say watch the IndianJesus on Rumble, and I'm not going to say anything else. I just get myself in trouble. So peace out, brother.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Discord chat. We'll be there right after here. Peace out. All right. We had Doug, and I just Doug, if you want to connect, it says they'll need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. So, oh, there we go. What is good?
Hey, what's up?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
What did you think of all this?
Oh, I'm just enjoying the stream.
Word up, word up. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But what do you think about the notion of Jordan Peterson being this guy who presents himself as a Christian and talks a lot about the Christian message, but then outwardly says, "I don't believe," or rather, that God is a fictional character.
Yeah, that definitely sounded like a contradiction.
So if you, I mean, where do you fall on the whole religion thing?
I mean, I agree. Like he was pretty clear that he thinks God's a fictional character.
Wait, but what about you
Thank
though?
you.
What's your religious background? What do you
religious-
believe? What do you not believe?
Well, I was baptized as a Catholic.
Same.
Okay, cool. Yes, you can relate.
And so you continue to follow that?
More or less. It's more like a well, I mean, I do and I don't. I've branched out a lot since that time. Like for a period of time in college, I told everybody that I was a pantheist.
Okay. And so let's dig into that then, because there's a lot of different meanings, especially with pantheism. Little Toes, I don't know. Welcome. And welcome to, per usual, I don't know. That is exactly why I ask you guys to be the notification. But I'm glad you are here. But yes, so when you say you used to identify as a pantheist, what did pantheism mean to you?
Well, I don't know. I feel kind of vulnerable getting into it because I don't want to I mean, I would rather just criticize Jordan's religion than expose mine to criticism.
Okay. So go for it.
Oh, well, I guess just after the pantheism phase, I basically I read some stuff that was like Eastern influenced. So starting to get into like Buddhist concepts, I think, but I never actually went and like read any Buddhist religious texts like to an extent, or even knew people that were Buddhist. It was mostly just like, yeah, just a few books. Like there's this one guy who's on Oprah. His name's Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I read some of like him, and then I took a trip to India, and I was reading some like yogis while I was over there, and I'm still reading some yogis because I really like. So I was kind of digging that Deepak Chopra a little bit because he was kind of sounding like a yogi. I thought, but anyways, then I kind of came back to Christianity, but really, I mean, honestly, if somebody was today, if they were like gun to your head, you have to decide what your religion is, then I would say that I'm not Christian, or I'm not any of the religions. I have like my own religion.
Right. And I think that's how most people are. So that's why I ask not about religion specifically, but belief specifically. So I mean, you said you didn't want to go into your own beliefs, and then you continue to go down the road of your own beliefs. Just so starting today, you said you're or not starting today, but as of today, you said you're closer back in line with Christianity. So is that to say that you do believe in? So let's start there. Do you believe that God exists? There's something out there that you would call God. And you could. There's three answers. There's yes, there's no, or I don't know.
Is there a fourth answer? What if I demur?
I don't know what demure means.
Demur is refusing to answer the question.
Well, I mean, you can, but this is what we're talking about, brother.
Well, I don't want to say yes, no, or I don't know. So
okay. So what is it that you would like to talk about? Because you're up on the panel. We're running a show, so this is what we're talking about. What is it that you'd like to talk about?
I like Jordan a lot. He's just great, don't you think? Because in 2018, a friend of mine sent me that clip of him arguing with that news anchor in Canada about that whole thing, and I was just like blown away. I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've seen on YouTube in a little bit, and so yeah, I'm glad that he stuck around. I think that you pointed out something interesting that I definitely did not know, that he's an atheist, and the fact that he just started working for the Daily Wire makes that particularly a hot take.
Yeah. I don't think he knows that he's an atheist, which I think again is true for very many people. Well, so it says, when are we going to move past religion? It seems like your main talking point. I have not done a stream on religion in 2 weeks, specifically because you guys didn't, you guys weren't about it. But Jordan Peterson being an atheist, I think, is a big deal. So I don't know what I'd really be doing here. Is the IndianJesus not talking about it? If it's not your bag, then it's not your bag. But I mean, clearly you're not here that often. If you think we're only talking about religion.
I feel like if you took the last 3 words of your title tonight and just made that a new video, then maybe it would go viral.
Possibly, yeah, possibly, very, very, very likely. And then definitely, I'm gonna clip this up. Hopefully, get some of those shorts views. Frigo's got to leave. Thank you so much for hanging out, brother. If you can, we are going to Discord right after this. So meet us there. Byron said, it's interesting the timing of Eastern thought and hallucinogens into the Western mind around the same time period. Yeah, that's definitely there's a lot of crossover in that realm. But all right, so any if you want to shout out, if you got a YouTube channel, Twitter, or social media, any of that stuff, if you want to shout that out, the floor, Doug, is all yours.
Okay, I don't have any social medias because I don't really do that, and I'm kind of old, even though people tell me that I sound young. But yeah, I'm too old for that because I got a career and stuff outside of social media, so I'm not trying to get. I don't want any smoke. I don't want smoke. So all the smoke to IndianJesus. Shout out to IJ for having a killer stream, and I hope everybody keeps coming back and hanging out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I do appreciate it. And again, we would love to have you in the Discord community. So make sure you hit that link, sign up, and hang out with us. We can have the conversations without anything. When we have the show, we want to keep the conversations on the show. But when we go over Discord, it's just, hey, guys, what's going on? But thank you again. I really appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate you coming up, and appreciate your opinion.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
See you.
Hey, we got Jeremy Lewis in the building. What's up? What's up? We have actually proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that Jordan Peterson is, in fact, an atheist and does not believe in God. Let's go back for all the people who just joined us. Let's just get that clip. Right quick. Oh, this is the wrong one. Hold on. Let's just get that clip back and show for sure. Oh, it's going to take me forever to find it. Oh, no. I thought it was right in the beginning. Or I thought it was right there. Fuck. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. I got you.
And then that's a whole hierarchy of value that is definitely governing either in an integrated manner or a disintegrated manner.
that is the highest place on this
Hold
value
on,
hierarchy.
That you can look at the world through,
Peterson
characterize his nature as that which should be emulated.
So he's talking about God right now. Oh, I got you here. Yeah, Doug just traveled between the dimensions. So if you missed it, this is the irrefutable proof that Jordan Peterson does not believe in God.
That unites us psychologically and socially.
So, in my view, this is the proof. Jordan Peterson is an atheist. By God or divine or set.
The abstract.
There we go.
We characterize that using fiction, because fiction is the abstraction of hierarchies of attentional prioritization and action. And so we could say that in the highest sense, in the biblical corpus, God is the ultimate fictional character.
God is the ultimate fictional character. The ultimate fictional character. And so the point here is that much like Jordan Peterson, well, it tells I'm not putting that up. But yeah, I never heard him clearly state that he believes in God, but he talks about God. He talks about religion. He talks about religious values a lot. And so to say something like God is the ultimate fictional character says to me that all the things that I've been talking about, saying that we need to remove the dogma, remove the belief aspect. Not because of anything else except for the functionality, that there are too many people who understand that the evidence, the scientific evidence for the existence of God does not exist. If you have faith in that, fine, great. But that's not how we determine laws on faith. We determine laws on reality. We determine laws on if not culture, at least scientific realities. And when it does come to culture, then that culture is not just pulled out of thin air. It is based on science. It is based on moving a society forward. And we have, there's always arguments about what exactly those cultural things are. Right now, for example, the gender bender stuff is a very big issue in terms of whether people think it's a good thing or a bad thing. But that's the conversation that's happening now. Whether or not God exists, I mean, well, I guess there's no more freedom of speech. Why is there no freedom of speech? Jerry said, I had an idea he might be an atheist, but I wasn't sure. I had no idea. For a guy who talks that much about God, I never would have thought that. Piju says he kind of believes in God. He kind of believes in God. He don't believe in him. Okay. He just believes in the message. Yeah. And I think, again, a lot of people do. A lot of people believe that religion is a structure that is necessary. But the fact is that these values can very easily be extracted from the dogmatic aspects of religion. And we can take the values that we want, apply them to society, encourage them, and not have to even deal with what you believe, faith, supernatural, any of that. We don't. Divine Rod's got to leave. Thank you so much for hanging out. Everybody put Divine Rod in the chat. I know you're not going to do it because y'all suck, but if you like Divine Rod, and you should, the only person who will not let a post go up without a comment. Hugely, hugely helpful and much appreciated. Everybody be like Divine Rod. Thank you so much for hanging out. You have a good one. So there's one more short clip here from Deepak Chopra that I want to show just because there we go. D-Rod. There we go. That's the community building I'm looking for. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Jeremy. And so this is this video This clip is more about or it's more direct, and he is Deepak Chopra again is talking to Richard Dawkins, who was Doug's an infinite being. Do you believe in the infinite? Same kind of bullshit. But now we have Richard Dawkins, who is an evolutionary biologist and a very prominent atheist. Also, fun fact, he coined the term meme. $5 if you Google it, then you're a bitch. But $5 Cash App for anybody who can guess what year within, I'll give you a 5-year buffer. If you can guess within 5 years when the term meme was coined by Richard Dawkins, $5 Cash App. But in the meantime, let's get rid of that. And let's see these giants of academia and religion go at it. So just going apeshit and just saying stupid things. So last clip here, a 5-minute clip with Rogan and Sean Carroll talking about Deepak Chopra and how he is full of shit. Tax evasion they do on a daily basis. As Trump said, that makes them smart. Change the rules. Don't get mad. Hate the player, not the game.
Chopra it's super complex, and I guess that makes sense. It makes sense that it would be. Now, when someone boils it down to something that's really woo-woo, like, what in the bleep do we know? But how is that very frustrating?
That's a documentary. Very interesting, actually. What the it's like, I don't know how they write it with a bunch of like ampersand and exclamation, but it's what the fuck do we know? I don't know exactly what, but check that out.
Frustrating to you? Like, that must make you communicating with people that have seen that and have these ideas that are false assumptions based on it. Sort of like I said to you that atoms are mostly hollow.
Yeah. You realize Elon just bought a bleeding company, right?
What is that frustrating? I mean, what is that like?
It's frustrating at different levels. I think my first impulse is to be charmed and happy when people care. Right? When people are even interested. Honestly.
That's very positive of you.
Yeah, like I first want to give people credit and see if there's something inside them that we can work with and try to work toward the truth.
So he's a scientist. Sean Carroll is a scientist as well.
Right. But then, and I think most people maybe are like that. And there's some hardcore people who've made up their minds about the craziness. I mean, you see where it would come from, right? Because quantum mechanics says what the world is different than what we see when we look at it. So it's a small leap from that correct statement to we bring the world into existence by looking at it, right? And then you're Deepak Chopra. And Deepak, he's found me on Twitter. So whenever I tweet something about quantum mechanics, he retweets it with something, but it's all in your mind. It's all consciousness bringing the world into existence.
He loves word salad.
Yeah.
That guy is the biggest, dealer of word salad that the world has ever known.
And the genius is putting the word salad into a recipe that people think is nutritious for them, right? they really like to eat, even though there's no actual nutritional value.
Well, you get a lot of that from certain yoga classes. There's certain yoga classes that I go to where the yoga teacher will start talking some woo-woo shit and you're be in the middle of the pose. I'm like, what in the fuck is this guy going on about, man?
I do it too, and as long as the pose is helping me, I'm going to put up with that.
Yeah, I'll smile my way through it.
I'm not going to debate them right in the middle of it.
But it's weird that stuff is all that's all sort of kind of in that sort of genre of people that are trying to improve their life or be spiritual, or they love that Deepak Chopra shit.
These are the atheists that Mike was just talking about. That you'll go through, it's clear that humans, even though we're evolved enough to be able to question the religion that is pervasive now, the religions, it doesn't mean that we're not still wired to want to find explanations. And so the people who are atheists, who don't take the time to actually figure out, okay, what is it that I do believe, and why do I believe those things? We'll just get caught up in another fucking bullshit with more crazy beliefs.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's he gave me a Deepak Chopra book, and I started going through it, and I was like, this guy's crazy, right? He probably wants to do well. He's probably not a terrible person. Probably wants to do well, but he's also ignoring the actual scientists that study all this stuff.
Yep.
And he's sort of pitching this thing that what it is, like this Deepak Chopraism, this sort of like spiritual, pseudo quasi spiritual view of the world that he's pitching to like these middle-aged housewives.
Yeah.
They're like
Yup.
looking for some sort of meaning to life, but they don't like going to church.
Yeah, and Daniel Dennett, the philosopher, came up with a great word for it. He calls
I was talking about Dan Dennett earlier.
them deepities, when you string some words together in a way that sounds extremely profound, but you look closely at it and it doesn't actually mean anything at all.
You know, there's a website that'll do that for you.
Oh, the Deepak Chopra quote generator.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. It's not that hard.
Really?
There's another website
That's
that comes up
hilarious.
with random physics paper titles,
Oh.
and it's not that different.
It's not that
You can
different.
usually tell when it's a random physics
But
paper.
the physics stuff is, it's almost, I guess there's similar issues with the reason why Deepak can do that is because most people don't understand what he's talking about. So if you say a lot of stuff about things that people don't understand, like there's been a bunch of videos that we played on this podcast about fake martial arts practitioners. There's a whole
same
business
type of shit.
in these people that have these fake martial arts techniques.
Same
and
exact
they use
shit.
all these huge words that are very, very rare about the central nervous system and about the, you know, the structure of the body. And they'll use all this stuff to try to get you to think like, oh, well, this guy obviously has an enormous vocabulary and a deep understanding of anatomy. He must therefore be this chi master that he's pretending to be. And it's kind of very similar. So I kind of recognize that pattern in the woo-woo people. I'm like, oh, I kind of see what you're doing. You're throwing a bunch of very complicated words that aren't in most people's vernacular, and you're saying them in a way that makes me feel like you have some sort of a connection to the chi, to the chakras, and to the inner whatever that everybody's trying to reach to be happy.
Yeah. Sounds to me a little bit like the bullshit level of astrology. All right, we got 30 seconds left. I want to come back and finish Gamer J's comments, and then we're heading over to Discord.
And another problem is just that whenever there is a field, whether it's physics or medicine or whatever, where we know something, but it's hard, complicated, counterintuitive, when we explain it, we translate it, right? You know, in physics, we have mathematical equations that are quite unambiguous as to what they say, but then we use words. We say, well, there's a cloud, there's a probability, etc. And every translation is inaccurate in some sense. So if you're basing your beliefs off the translations, then you can fudge them a little bit more to get almost wherever you want to go.
All right, so let's back up a little bit before we get there. Gamer J, are you still here? I don't want to go down this road if you're not still here. But saying, you know, talking about tax evasion, why not start with someone like Elon Musk, who, according to a mathematician, would literally be still the richest man if he gave every living person £1 million. They suffered the harsh, terrible trouble of using loopholes for tax evasion and work exploitation. Oh, those poor, helpless, rich people. Did I say that? I'm pretty sure I didn't say anything about poor or helpless. What I said was that they earned that money. Did you come up with PayPal? Did you come up with Tesla? Did you come up with SpaceX? Are you employing hundreds of, I mean, I don't fucking know, but I assume thousands of people across the world? So it's not about being, oh, these poor rich people. No, they're rich for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean that it's, you know, fair across the board for everybody. But I don't think the answer to that unfairness is taking away money from the people that earned it, but rather providing more opportunities for people who haven't earned it to be able to earn it. And then Jeremy says, transgenderism is a mental disorder under the guise of gender role confirmation, which in most instances undermines the LGBTQ narrative. I definitely agree that a lot of the activism in this space really makes it tough for the regular ass person who's just like, I've got this dysphoria and, you know, whatever. And I just kind of want to live my life the way I want to live my life. And so I'm going to present as, you know, the opposite gender, a different gender. And I don't want anybody, I don't need anybody to throw a parade for me. I just want to live my life. I know a number of people like that. I used to work with a trans man, person who was born a woman and wanted to be a man. Presented as a man. I mean, if you look closely, you'd probably be able to tell. But, you know, if you just talk to him on a regular basis, he was just like a normal other dude. And, you know, I feel bad for those type of people who just want, again, to just live a normal life. And now you've got these people out here acting like they want to force their ideology, not just their lifestyle, their ideology on people. And people like my friend just get lumped in. But it's really a much larger thing than just Jordan Peterson. Again, Jordan Peterson is just the figurehead for this. He's an easy figurehead because he talks about Christianity, he talks about the Bible, he talks about God so often. And so even Jordan Peterson is somebody who doesn't actually believe in God in the way that we talk about believing in God. Then what makes you think that your pastor believes in the same thing, that when he says God, he's referring to the same thing that you, the person next to you in the pews, the person at the in the church on the other side of the town? What makes you think that you guys even have the same beliefs? Just because you're using the word God? Just because you're calling yourself Christians? Don't work like that. Jerry says, well, in the idea of relationships, they're trying to conform to gender role. Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't. Well, save that stuff for Discord. Says lifestyles of the rich and famous, but Robin Leach, I don't know who that is, yells out, how many homeless could be housed if these properties were taxed appropriately? Again, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about religion and semantic obfuscation, as always. I do, like I said, Gamer J, if you let me, since you are on Discord, or excuse me, since you are on Twitch, I will drop the link to the IndianJesus Discord server. Oh my god, I have so many fucking tabs open here. Hold on one second. In the chat for you. And that is where we can have more open discussions that aren't necessarily directly relevant to the show that we're doing right now. So I've just dropped that link in the chat for you. Oh. So come on over there. We are about to head over there. I think I made my point here. I think if Jordan Peterson is an atheist, I don't really know who out there believes in anything else that would represent what normal people think of when they say Christianity, God, religion, all these things. The point is, everybody has their own definition. None of you believe in the same thing that anybody else believes in. And the sooner we realize that, the better we will be able to take the values and worry about the values instead of worrying about what it is that you actually believe is true or not. So I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. I think this was a really important show. I know a lot of you Christians are not too happy when I talk about the religious stuff, but this is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing. We're getting real. You're not always going to love everything I say, but I promise you, as long as you keep coming back, you will be a better person for it. You're not going to love everything I say, and you are more than welcome to push back against what I have to say. But when you come here, we get real. We talk about the shit that nobody else is, nobody else is willing to talk about. So Jeremy is gonna stop by a little bit later. Thank you. Yeah, guys, the link to the Discord is in the description of the video. If you're on Twitch, I just put it in the description. Join it. It is free. It is free for now. I have a number in my head of how many members I want before I cut it off, and it's going to be a paid subscription thing for everybody who is not already in the Discord. So if you join now while it's free, you're free. It's free for life. But once we're growing, and once it gets to that level, you're gonna kick yourself because you sure as shit are gonna want to be in there, and you're gonna want to pay it. So save yourself some money. But really, the thing that matters most to me is you guys spending time here with me. I still looking for a way to say it in a little bit less cheesy of a way, but it means so much to me that you could be doing anything in the world on a Monday night, and you spend that time here with me, and that means a lot. We are on the road to 1K. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you have not done so, please do hit the subscribe button. That is the biggest thing that will help me out. Until we get there, obviously the channel is not monetized. So if you want to help out and support the channel, right there, Venmo, CashApp, PayPal, Bitcoin, all of that stuff. But you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do any of that. It is completely free to show up here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. It is completely free to hit the like button. It is free to subscribe. It is free to be in the chat. It is free to leave comments after the fact, which also really helps. And as Little Toes was saying before, these notifications are ass. So the biggest thing that you really could do for me is take the link, take the URL for this video, and plaster it all over social media, all on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, other YouTube pages, whatever. There is other people who want to be at this party. There are other people who you want to be at this party to make this more fun for all of us. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. But I can't do it by myself, guys. I need your help. But even if you don't want to do any of that shit, and all you want to do is sit there and consume my greatness and just think, oh man, that is awesome. The IndianJesus is the one. That'd be perfectly fine too. That would be perfectly fine too. All I ask is that you come back every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's where we'll be. Party on. Until next time, guys, I've been your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the IndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, or catch me in the Discord, I am out of here. Peace.